Hi, I'm Russ.
And I'm Lori.
And we're part of the Employee Engagement Team. The Employee Engagement Team is a voluntary group that's made up of county staff across all levels and from all departments.
This team is the one that puts together the annual employee survey, which helps us find ways to help employees feel heard and appreciated.
In connection with the employee survey, we want to announce the Engagement Team's spring campaign, which we're calling Gratitude Month. Gratitude Month provides some simple ways for staff to show appreciation to those they work with every day for their help and support.
We all have great colleagues that we work with that make our jobs a little easier or more enjoyable. And Gratitude Month hopes to provide little ways to help recognize those people around us.
Each department will receive a packet with instructions and materials for their common room, including things like a gratitude wall or simple ways to help say thank you to someone. We hope you'll take advantage of these opportunities to recognize those around you for their contributions.
Keep an eye open for emails announcing the start of the campaign, as well as the arrival of those packets in your office.
And remember that the Employee Engagement Team is open to anyone, and we're always looking for new members. If you'd like to be part of what we're doing or have comments or questions, you can reach us at employee_engagement@mendocinocounty.gov.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit mendoready.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
To the regular meeting of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, if you take roll.
Supervisor Klein?
Here.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Here.
Supervisor Hatchak?
Here.
Supervisor Norvell?
Here.
Supervisor Williams?
Here. Okay, and Supervisor Williams is going to lead us in the pledge today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
and to the republic, one nation.
Okay, we will now open the podium up to anybody who would like to speak on anything not on today's agenda. Please come to the podium. Seeing nobody, Madam Clerk.
Seeing no public comment online.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent. Yep, Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, in
please.
public expression, I wonder if the chair would entertain a motion of silence for Norman Duvall, who sat in this seat for 16 years and then continued serving the public in various ways.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we will now move on to the consent calendar. I know Supervisor Klein would like to pull C16 for discussion. Is there any member of the board that would like to pull any item off of consent?
Chair, I just have a comment on another item.
Okay.
I just wanted to
briefly thank staff for item C8, ratification of letter supporting ACR 97 by Assemblymember Chris Rogers, which would name our new bridge, Highway 20, to the Charlie Barra Memorial Bridge.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, proper notice been established?
Proper notice has been established, and any correspondence, if any received, has been sent to your emails.
Okay, and then I would like to ask anybody that would like to speak on C16 to come to the podium first. Supervisor Klein, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just on item C16, this is the adoption of the proclamation recognizing April 19th through 25th, 2026 as Volunteer Appreciation Week in Mendocino County. This community thrives on volunteers, runs on volunteers, and so I know there are several people here to give comments today, and I just want to extend my appreciation for all the volunteers that dedicate their time.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board, CEO, and County Council. My name is Quincy Crummer. I'm the Field Services Captain for the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. So as a small office, we definitely rely on volunteers, and they fall into 4 different groups. Those groups are our search and rescue volunteers, our volunteer chaplains, we have our inmate services programs, and then our SWAT medics. And to briefly speak about the SWAT medics, there's 2 paramedics here locally that volunteer their time to go out on our SWAT deployments, which is a multi-jurisdictional team between Mendocino County and Lake County, and they do that free of charge, so we have immediate medical support for any type of critical incident that may happen on a call out for our SWAT team. So first off, I'm going to call up a few friends that are going to speak about these different groups, and our Administrative Services Manager, Rose Britton, is first.
Thank you, Captain Cromer, and good morning. I'm Rose Britton, Administrative Services Manager for the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. I'm honored today to introduce and have been a part of the conception and implementation of the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office Volunteer Chaplain Program. The Volunteer Chaplain Program started with Sheriff Kendall's idea in the spring of 2025, which is now in its official capacity as of January 2026. These chaplains will be out in our communities supporting residents during difficult calls for service to support the Sheriff's Office patrol. They'll be recognized by white shirts with the Sheriff's Office badge and their names. The chaplains represent a wide variety of denominations, and with that, I'd like to welcome up Chaplain Davina Sentik, who is our lead chaplain overseeing the program. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to be here today. I am happy to say that over the last year, we have had a process of developing this concept and policy and procedures and recruitment, facilitating a law enforcement chaplain academy here locally. We have 12 volunteer chaplains from throughout the county who, as Rose mentioned, represent a variety of denominations. Many of them are highly trained and experienced chaplains, 4 of them from our Adventist healthcare system. And we are fortunate to have the support of Adventist Health in allowing their chaplains to participate in this program and be available for call out during their hours of service for the hospital. We have 3 wonderful chaplains here in Ukiah, 6 serving in the North County area, and 3 on the coast. I don't know if you have any questions about that, but we are excited to be in service in our community and also supporting the staff for Mendocino County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
My next introduction will be our volunteer SAR commander, Detective Jared Cheney.
Morning, board, CEO, everyone else. My name is Jared Cheney. I am currently a detective at the Sheriff's Office. However, I came to the Sheriff's Office by volunteering for SAR back in 2010. I joined that team and realized quickly these were my people. These are the kind of people that will go out in the middle of a dark and stormy night to look for your loved ones. Most of the gear they wear is purchased with their own funds. The Sheriff's Office is very supportive with providing older vehicles, but but everything else is supported. All the money's brought in is by donations that those SAR members get themselves, so as a team. It is an incredible group of about 30 to 50 people, depending on the time of day, time of year, and people's schedules, because these people will leave their own jobs to go out and search for your loved ones. They'll take days off, and they'll spend their free times away from their families to look for yours. We do have around 30 missions on average. Our busier years are around 70 times a year. We'll go out looking for that missing person in the woods, looking for mushrooms, the lost hunters, the visitors from out of county. So we're quite a busy team, and we're getting to be known across the state. We're quite well known for our abilities and our volunteer team. They're amazing.
Excuse me, sir, we have one question or perhaps a comment.
Where
Supervisor
can
Williams?
interested members of the public learn more about volunteering with SAR?
That's an excellent question. So we do have a website and a Facebook page that does have a link to our application. We also have an open to the public, we call it an all-SAR meeting. Every fourth Wednesday of the month, we're meeting at the Sheriff's Office at the Donovan Room, and it's open to the public, 6 p.m. Anybody can come and watch a meeting and participate in that training for that evening to see if it's a family they want to join.
Thank you. And the last introduction I would like to make is our Restorative Justice Program Manager, Buffy Wright-Barassa.
Good morning, Board and Chair Norvell, CEO Antle, and County Counsel Elliott. It's with great pleasure to come up here and appreciate the volunteers that come into inmate services and programs. We have over 62 current volunteers that are coming in, and they're providing services such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. We also have women that are coming in for the garden crew, and that's Carlotta Curdy and Robin Goldner. Robin Goldner is a real special lady. She comes out of Willits. She's an LCSW volunteering her time, not only for the garden, but also for our new class that started up about a year and a half ago. It's the Victim Impact, Listen and Learn. And it's provided once a week to our minimum classification, and we really are seeing some changes there. The other programs that are coming in are the Native American program. Martin Martinez has been doing this for years in Mendocino County Jail and leading up some volunteers there. We also have a huge jail ministry, and we're very proud of that ministry and all of the work that they do. We have several denominations that are coming in and providing the service. And in providing service to incarcerated folks, we're looking at planting seeds and, starting those changes. And those changes, they happen slowly for some, and some it happens right away. So we're happy to do those things. If anyone in the community is willing to volunteer, they're welcome to contact myself or Karina Guzman, and we will start the process to get them cleared to come into the jail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to take over this portion of your meeting, but as another plug, thank you, Supervisor Williams, for mentioning that. If there's anything we spoke about here today regarding volunteerism that anyone that is watching or is here present and is interested in, please go to the MendocinoSheriff.org website. On the top right, contact us. You can find my contact information, Rose Britton, basically everybody that spoke here today, and we try to connect you with whichever group you would like to volunteer with. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes. Yes. Madam Clerk?
We have two online. First is Amy Campbell.
Good morning. Amy Campbell, Shelter Director, Animal Care Services. Wanted to take a moment to appreciate all our wonderful and dedicated volunteers here at the shelter. Endless volunteer hours are spent each year walking dogs, socializing cats, coordinating and attending adoption events, fostering, networking, and so much more. Volunteering at an animal shelter can be hard physically and emotionally, but it's also very rewarding. I think it's important for our community to know that the Ukiah Shelter has a very committed, consistent, and dedicated network of volunteers, and that we are very fortunate to have them. Thank you to all the volunteers who show up for the animals in our care. You are all so very, very appreciated. We have a volunteer orientation the second Saturday of each month at 9 o'clock at the shelter at 298 Plant Road, for anyone interested in becoming a volunteer. We love to have as many people as possible coming in and socializing and walking our animals and participating in events. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Melissa Hannum.
Good morning. Melissa Hannum, County Librarian. Libraries across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week this week under the theme Find Your Joy. And one of the things that brings great joy to our Mendocino Library branches is our volunteers. Our volunteers help us create inviting, organized spaces. They shelve, set up displays and programs, and support library staff. Almost 4,000 volunteer hours have already been recorded during this fiscal year, proving that they're integral to our team. We are truly grateful for the library joy that our wonderful volunteers bring us each day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments online.
Thank you.
Good morning, Karen Matson, Mendocino County Museum Administrator. Our museum is an asset to our county. It is beloved, it's a beloved community hub and a vital tourist destination. And it is through the contributions of our volunteers that we were able to sustain and grow this incredible place of pride. Our county volunteers fill a variety of crucial roles at the museum. They lead family activities, aid with field trips, lead group tours, provide theatrical readings, provide collections care, research, environmental monitoring. These are all specialized museum tasks, and I want to thank each and every one of our museum volunteers for their time and truly unique skills that they bring to our organization. Our nonprofit support organization, the Friends of the Mendocino County Museum, operate our gift shop, welcome and connect visitors from around the world to our unique county history, and raise funds to support museum programs and projects. I'd like to acknowledge the Friends of the Mendocino County Museum Board and their team who volunteer in this capacity. I'd also like to appreciate the members of the Museum Advisory Board. This is a volunteer role that is often unsung, and I want everyone to know that the individuals who serve on this board are appreciated and their role is valuable to our organization. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Roots of Motive Power Incorporated for their volunteerism and collaboration with the Mendocino County Museum. Our community is truly our greatest asset of all. I believe that. And I appreciate this board and HR for taking the time to acknowledge the great work of volunteers throughout the county during Volunteer Appreciation Week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else like to comment on anything on the consent calendar? Please come to the podium. Madam Clerk, any online?
Seeing none online.
Okay, back to the board for action or discussion. Supervisor Hashtag.
Well, before I make a motion to approve the consent calendar, I'd just like to appreciate all the people who serve on the boards and commissions of the county, all the MACs that are out there in municipal advisory councils, and all of those that make this county run. Like Supervisor Klein said, you know, our communities can't really do it without the volunteerism. So thank you all.
Well
and
said.
with that, I make the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right. We have a first by Supervisor Hashtag, seconded by Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on to the regular calendar. Agenda item R1, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of informational reports from the Assessor, Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters, Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, District Attorney, Sheriff, and various county department heads or designees. Anybody in the room?
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Sarah McBurney. I'm the Senior Program Manager with the Cannabis Division in Planning and Building Services. I wanted to provide an update on the state's Cannabis Equity Grants Program, which is also known as CEG funding. So this program supports local jurisdictions in advancing economic justice for individuals and communities disproportionately affected by cannabis prohibition and the war on drugs. Since the county adopted its local equity program in 2020, we have submitted 7 applications for CEG funding, with 6 of those rounds being awarded to the county. We are pleased to announce our most recent award, which is the Local Equity Entrepreneur Program, or LEAP Round 7, in the amount of $750,000. This grant term began on April 1st, 2026, and will continue for the county through October 31st, 2027. From this round, the division anticipates allocating 10% of the total award to offset our 1000 series, and which will be used for administrative functions of the equity program. Another 10% will be used to continue our contract with Canna Business Services, who is our procured vendor for direct technical assistance. And the last 80% will be directed towards fee relief and direct grants for our equity verified individuals. We anticipate being able to fund 11 different direct grants with this funding. Overall, since its inception, the program has administered over $6 million in direct grants and fee relief directly to eligible equity applicants. This money is used for the purposes of startup and ongoing business expenses related to their cannabis business licenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Yes, one quick question. Ms. Burney, you said 10% of the grant would go towards administrative costs. Does that completely cover the administrative costs associated with the county administering the grant? Or are there additional resources needed for the grant?
If I may, through the chair, so that 10% does go towards county council time as well as staff administrative time. I do think that, you know, different opportunities arise when planners are working through cannabis business license review, and a piece of that can be captured through the equity program as well. I think it does a pretty good job of capturing the total costs associated with running the program.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that update. I have received some questions from residents, and so just wanted to provide a snapshot for folks listening into the board meeting of what the grant was about. So thank you.
Thank you. Also, our website is a great resource as well. It's currently updated with all relevant information and a rolling application system for anyone that may be interested in applying to be an equity verified individual, not necessarily for a new direct grant, but to apply to be part of the equity program.
We have one more question, please. Supervisor Haschuk.
I heard you say that it could provide funding for about 11 applicants. So is the limit 50,000 or so? Yeah.
Yes, if I may, through the chair. So the LEAP direct grants are a maximum of $50,000 per equity verified individual. So we anticipate usually that funding can shift a little bit depending upon the applicant. Sometimes they'll take a little bit less, but they are allowed up to $50,000 per individual.
And how many applicants are there?
There are currently 202 applicants in the existing direct grant queue. So this was a queue that we inherited from Elevate Impact when the equity program was first adopted. So we are not accepting any new LEAP direct grant applications. So folks that apply on a rolling application system and get applied or verified today. Our goal is to get through the queue that was originally expecting that money, and then open up the application system for anyone new that's verified.
All right. So, you know, in the past, we've talked about people paying their fees with that money. So has there been discussion amongst your department and about doing more grants for more people so that they could pay those fees instead of the high amount for a few?
If I may, through the chair. So yes, every year we attempt to do a fee relief window, and we do have that calendarized this year. So on May 15th, we'll open up a fee relief window for equity verified applicants to apply for different county fees. So it can go towards planning and building fees. If they have a compliance plan, it can go through county fees, whether that be, you know, renewal for their cannabis business license or taxes, so they can pay their true up or anything left with that. They could pay quarterly fees. We have about $92,000 set aside for that this year. It is important to note we had the same amount set aside last year, and that funding was gone within 2 hours of the application window opening. So we opened up at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m. that funding was gone. So there absolutely are equity verified applicants taking advantage of those fee relief times. It's just not enough funding to cover everyone. But there is a piece of funding set aside in that 80% of the total grant award for fee relief For round 7, the 750,000, it's 120,000 is set aside for fee relief, and the rest of that will go towards direct grants. A few years ago, through the General Government Committee, we hosted a survey for equity applicants to participate online, and they polled and told us that they wanted what portion of funding to go towards fee relief and what portion to go towards direct grants. And we actually received pretty large community feedback from that. And so we're continuing on with that same feedback that we received.
Well, thank you, and really I appreciate your professionalism in administering that program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Good morning, all. Katrina Bartlemy, Assessor, Clerk Recorder, Registrar of Voters. I'm here to tell you what's going on in elections today. So we've been busy working on the June 2nd election. Our ballot and our sample ballot are now at the printers. The sample ballot should probably go out, begin being mailed later this week, and our ballots will be mailed by May 4th. We sent out, which I think is always amazing, we used to send out about 200 UOCAVA, which is military and overseas ballots. This time we sent out 374. So, I mean, I think that's great. So we mailed 66 and we emailed, which is becoming more and more popular, about 308. So, you know, that's getting better and better every election. The one thing with emailing them out, we're not allowed by law to accept them by email. They have to be faxed. So there used to be a federal program, it was called FVAP, that the voter could email their ballot to them and then they would fax it to us. Well, that doesn't work anymore. So I think the entire state is looking for an alternative, an easy way for these people to get their ballots returned to us in time. So that's I think always in the works. Ted, do you have a question?
I shouldn't ask,
You
but
promised.
I did. I'm breaking my promise. They're allowed to use a third-party service. They can email a service that then faxes us.
Yes.
Could we be
a federal service?
Oh, federal service. I was going to ask, could we be that service where they email us and we fax ourselves?
Well, it can't be emailed to my office, so it has to be faxed to my office. There are other fax services, but I think it costs money. So, you know, that's a big quandrum that, you know, we hope to get resolved before too long. But that's a statewide thing. That's not we'll do whatever the Secretary of State tells us to do, right? You know, so I think that's really important. You all were talking about volunteers, and I don't know if you realize how many volunteers the Elections Department has to have an election. So we have 30 polling places at 21 locations, and they each have at least 4 people. That's an inspector who's in charge of getting everything signed and returned to us, a judge who is the one that actually issues the ballots to the people, and 2 clerks. So that's 120 minimum people that we have to have. But most of the clerks, because most of our poll workers are getting up there in age, can't work all day. So they split their day in half. So that adds to that number. And then in our office, we have between 6 to 8 people, not ladies, people that come in and they'll work from like mid-May through June until we certify. Most of them have been here for several years, and what they do is they help us with checking signatures, filing the ballots in precinct order that are still in the envelopes. When it comes time to start opening, when we get enough, then they open the ballots, they put them in batches of 50 to get them ready to be counted. So, you know, we probably have in one election 250 people working for us. Did you guys realize that? It's amazing. And it's getting harder and harder for us to find poll workers. So, you know, it's we need to do some sort of poll worker drive. We've had one of our extra help ladies in working for several months trying to get poll work. So we've got a couple places that I think we're finally getting. Point Arena, the city clerk has stepped up, and he's going to be our inspector because we could not find one. It was either that or close that polling place. So if you guys can help with that, that would be amazing. Ted?
Where can potential volunteers learn more?
They can call our office and speak to Gina or to Sally. Sally's the one that's been doing this. She doesn't work full-time, but she's there now helping with all that and checking petitions, the statewide petitions. So the volunteers are definitely, they get paid a small stipend, but they're volunteers. We will be conducting a special election for Ukiah Unified School District Trustee Area 6. That's a small, long district that runs from about Freitas Avenue, where Ellie's Mutt Hut is, you know where that is, and goes a couple blocks each way down State Street to Norgard. So they've been having a bad time filling that position. So if anyone is interested or thinks they're in that district, call our office and we'll let them know. But we need to really help them out with that. So the candidate filing period for Ukiah Unified is about May 4th to May 29th. Do any of you have any more questions?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else in the room? Madam Clerk, do you have anybody online?
Seeing no presenters online.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. Again, Madam Clerk, anybody online?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board. Supervisor Williams.
Move approval.
Second. Okay, thank you. First by Supervisor Williams, second by Supervisor Haschak. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item R2, discussion and possible action including approval or denial of requests from department heads and elected officials regarding budget impacts, funding, and recruitment of vacant or new positions following the strategic hiring process. Ms. Johnson.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Sherry Johnson, Human Resources Director. So today we have one department asking to hire. So that is the executive office. So I will turn it over to CEO Antle. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, I have a memo attached. It's to fill a deputy CEO position. As you may be aware, current deputy CEO Tony Rakes accepted the IS director position earlier this month. He has agreed to stay in the department to help throughout the budget process this year, but he is stepping up and doing more duties within the IT division or department now. So we're requesting to fill that position as it's desperately needed with changes that are happening.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? No? We'll go to public comment. Seeing any in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board. Supervisor Williams.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, first by Supervisor Williams, second by Supervisor Klein. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. On to item R3. Notice of public hearing, discussion and possible action, including adoption of resolution amending Exhibit X, Mendocino County Master Fee Schedule, effective June 20th, 2026, unless code or policy require longer adopting fee modifications for the Departments of Agricultural Executive Office, Environmental Health, Health Services, Museum, Planning and Building Services, Social Services, and Land Improvement Transportation. So the public hearing will go as such. The clerk will establish proper notice. We will open the public hearing. The clerk will note correspondence. We'll have staff presentation, public input. Staff can present their final remarks. We'll go back to the Board of Supervisors for questions to staff. The public hearing will close, and then the matter will be before the board. So it is 9:33. We'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, has proper notice been established?
Proper notice has been established and all correspondence for this item, if any, received has been sent to your email.
Okay, and we'll go to staff presentation. Ms. Pierce?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, CEO Antle, County Council. Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So before you today are 9 departments bringing forward their fees. As with the prior fee hearings, unless they are dictated or mandated by code, the fees are being calculated based on a modified cost recovery, so it does not include all indirect costs from the department. It does include a supervision rate, and it does include A87 costs. So I will just turn it over to each department just in alphabetical order. We'll be sharing the change memo shortly. But before I get started, there are fees within the departments that have previously had direction to reduce. Based on our requirement, we have to bring the fee back at the cost recovery. So if it's the board's direction, we can waive those fees again or reduce them. In the staff memo, change memo, those fees will be noted in like a purple color under the current fee. So as we go through each department, we can call them out. So the first department to present will be agriculture.
Good morning, Chair Novell, honorable members of the board, CEO Antle, and County Council Elliott. I'm happy to present today. As you see, as we go through this, this is in line with a recent, as Sarah mentioned, a recent time study and cost analysis. Some of our key changes include restructuring inspection and certification fees to hourly rates where appropriate, deleting obsolete and redundant fees, and adjusting device fee administration fees to comply with the state rate. As you will, as I want to point out, we have not had a major fee revision since around 2020. Something was done in 23, but so there's a lot of cleanup. You're seeing a lot of deleted fees on here because, again, wanting to really streamline what we're charging the people and the community. These factors, with operational efficiencies, we want to really try to capture the full cost of services. Many of our services, such as regulatory inspections and certification, are essential, and many are set by statute, but the ones that are not, we've looked at carefully here to revise, focusing our fee updates again on deleting, restructuring, deleting obsolete fees, consolidating into hourly models, deleted, and waiving reduced fees to encourage compliance. Restructuring. Like I said, if we get to you'll see the phytosanitary fees. They used to be broken up per number of items, cases. We've just gone with an hourly rate that reflects the actual time spent, including travel, ensures equity. Decreases in waivers. The device fees were marked way too high and out of compliance with statute, so we've corrected that. There's a new B apiary registration program in place. Those are new fees on there, but we do recommend that the board waive the small hive grower, small hive hobbyist bee people up to 9 hives. That just allows them to register, be aware of any pesticide applications, puts them on our radar, but it waives any fees for them. And those fees are generally collected by us and go to the state. One of the key overrides I wanted to suggest is that even though we've calculated the cost rate for certified producers and certified farmers markets, and it's, we suggest that we raise them from the $37 that they are now. We had, not sure how exactly we ended up with so many $37 fees from the past, but they're all being restructured to really reflect something right now. I would suggest with the certified farmers market fee that we increase it from the market would be increased from $37 to $75, and the certified producers fees would be increased from $37 to $50. These are very much in line with our neighboring counties, which I have a list here if the board would like to have it. We're very much in the middle of that, much
much less than our neighbor to the south, Sonoma, but very much in line with Lake County, Humboldt, Shasta, Nevada. Again, I have copies if the board would like that. That is the primary override that I'm suggesting. Again, with our weights and measures, we've adjusted the admin fee. Thank you. Sorry, I should have had that ready for you earlier. Again, open to any questions. Again, and with weights and measures, most of our fees are covered under Business and Profession Code 12240, so they're not going to be affected. It would just be the random odd inspection we get called, usually a higher capacity scale. That's why the hourly rate is higher, but those are pretty rare. I think we might go out once or twice a year on some of those things. So anyway, I do feel like this is a much needed cleanup. I really, really appreciate all the work that I had from the CEO budget team and Sarah Pierce, and I welcome any questions.
Supervisor Williams?
So I appreciate staff showing us what cost recovery would be. I don't know that the people in this county support greater charges for farmers market related activity.
No.
What I hear is it's a no-go with the public. I'm wondering, can we pay those fees out of 91 realignment, or is there some other funding source? We're not talking about much money here. This is like a rounding error, budget dust. But just, you know, politically, it's not the best move to be jacking up the rates on farmers markets. As I understand, a lot of those farmers at farmers markets, this may represent their profit margin. They're operating very slim margins and providing a great service to the public that we have fresh produce available.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So the certified farmers market is the farmers market fee that you're referring to, I believe, is under the environmental health, which we'll get to. But there are two fees here that Angela is requesting to have reduced: the certified producer certificate from $220 to $75, and then the certified farmers market certificate from $245 to $50.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the direction of the board, the full direction of the board, we can make that change. Or if it's a different amount, we'll take the direction from the board.
And I appreciate what you just said, but you switched them. So it's okay. It's a certified farmers market, and that involves up to maybe 20 producers at the big markets that we at least every 6 months to a year need to be inspecting. And then the other would take, like I said, it's a $13 increase. But I do leave it up to the board, and I definitely feel for this component of the community, and I welcome your direction.
Go ahead.
Mainly my comments apply to the environmental health fees, which are more substantial, but I think anything that has the word farmers market, we should leave as is.
Yeah, I would agree. Supervisor Klein?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments from my colleague. We did have a constituent, I think she's actually my constituent, reach out to all of us via email, and she had some comments regarding both the fees set by ag and the environmental health fees. She did agree with ag bringing the CPC and the CFM fees into the proposed alignment, so kind of keeping that moderate level that's with our neighboring county. So I'm in agreement with what the ag commissioner is proposing. I think it's a moderate increase, but there seems to be buy-in from that community.
Supervisor Mulhorn?
Thank you. Most of my comments related to the fee hearing will be about supporting small businesses and local people that are working to create some type of enterprise in this economy, especially in Mendocino County, where we have many Mendopreneurs and people that like to work for themselves. And so I support the Ag Commissioner's recommendation to lower the costs beyond what was based on cost recovery for these two items.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschek?
Could you clarify this fee versus the one in environmental health for farmers markets?
I know what we do to, you know, that this involves registration. We will do amendments. We do growing ground inspections. I can't really speak to what environmental health does for their fee, and I apologize for that. But I do know the amount of time we spend on the phone. We interface between the state system. There's, again, growing ground visits. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and we're more than happy to be supporting this part of the community. And you know, we do a lot of amendments that there's no charge for that. So, like I said, these are modest, but they're what we do. We verify that the farmers are actually producing that. We verify when we're at the markets that they have all the proper documentation, and that there's no, well, actually, McFarland here in this county it is very well run. We're very fortunate to have such a great farmers market association, and they kind of, well, I won't say they do their own policing, but they do a great job, and I look at them as really strong partners. So, I know we are overspending, and every dollar counts to this constituency. So, again, just what I think is fair, but I welcome whatever the board decides.
Yeah, I thank you, and I think that your work on a lot of these is appreciated by the community. I would agree with my colleagues who say that let's keep the certified producer certificate and certified farmers market certificate the way it is, along with, I'm going to propose, and with the environmental health, this cottage industry fees and the farmers market fees too.
Appreciate that.
Supervisor Williams.
I'm in agreement.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Pierce, would you like direction after each
Yes,
department?
please.
Okay. So it sounds like we have at least 3 to keep the fees where they were and not
Both
increase.
fees at
Is that correct?
37.
I think that I would say that my direction here, Mr. Chair, was to go the Ag Commissioner's recommendation as outlined in her memo.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
that's what I voiced as well.
Okay.
It seems the chair is the tiebreaker.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the email Supervisor Klein talked about, and I also heard from Happy Day Farms, which I apologize I didn't refresh on this morning, and they seem to be fine with the Ag Commissioner's increase as well. Their concern is more around environmental health, so I'm going to be in agreement with Supervisor Klein and Mulhern.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the board.
So the next department that is up is Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. And I would just like to note, the memo for the Behavioral Health Recovery Services was inadvertently left off. It was loaded this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Janine Miller. We have our Behavioral Health and Recovery Services fees. Our fees are supposed to be posted yearly. These fees are set by the state. They are not set by the department. The state sets fees for each county. And so what you see before you are the state fees for how much the county can charge per service. The thought process is that when we do a contract with our providers, that they get 75% of that fee. And so Mendo does really make sure we align with what the state perception is of how fees are to be worked with our contracted providers. We do have some fees that also are a fee for service, self-pay. We follow the same process of using that state fee, but we also do have sliding fee schedules so that an individual is able to pay up to a minimum of $36 a year for all services if they don't have an income, and we can't bill Medi-Cal for them. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Supervisor Williams.
Approve.
I see no other questions or comments.
If I may, through the chair, the next department up is Emergency Medical Services.
Okay.
You're first.
Going to be the next two. All right. So we have the EMS fees, and a couple things I wanted to go over. A lot of our fees are set by our LIMSA. They did a fee analysis this last year to look at fees. It does, as we know, our LIMSA is a look at Sonoma County and Mendocino County for those fees. And so some of those fees you're going to see are what was proposed by that fee analysis by the LIMSA, but that was conducted by the LIMSA. We also went back to look at our fees to really look at when's the last time we saw any fee increases in Mendocino County regarding EMS. And I was able to go back and see in 1992 that our fees were pretty similar. So in 1992, our receiving hospital rate was $8,000. You'll see today it's still $8,000. Most of our other EMS fees, minus the dispatch fees for ambulance, there's been a change there. But all of our fees for initial permit, the annual review, all of those were the same cost in 1992, 94, 2002, all the way up to date, and that's actually what we've been charging since 1992. You will see some changes, requests to up a little bit of those fees. It does not bring us to market and it does not bring us to full recovery. It's just a little bit of an increase to cover some of the staff time. We do realize that to really bring them, they would be a lot higher than they are today. There is our current base hospital rate is we charge we have 3 hospitals in Mendocino County. They all 3 operate as base hospitals. That's not common in Sonoma County. They have 1 base hospital, that's Santa Rosa Memorial, and the rest are receiving hospitals. But because of our geographical spread, we've always worked in Mendo to have 3 base hospitals. So what we have done is really give them 1 fee for all 3 base hospitals. The change of that fee, the fee this year is $37,334,000. And we would be moving it up to match what the LIMSA proposed for all 3 hospitals. That would not be per hospital cost. That would be, the $48,000 would be for all 3 hospitals to continue to operate as base hospitals. And then we've had a discrepancy sort of in our ambulance response. And so that was looking at what the LIMSA decided was kind of based on call ratio. This fee only provides to the private and non-profit ambulance. This excludes public safety agencies, and it excludes mutual aid response. So we only have 2 in Mendocino County. This fee has been applied to for multiple years. So it's not a change in applying this fee to those 2 agencies. It is a little bit of a change in cost. One of the discrepancy we see as we've been looking at the fees is one ambulance company has 2,000 calls on average a year, and they're paying $2,400 a month, give or take. And the other ambulance has 4,600 calls a year, and they're paying $2,500 a month. And so we are seeing a discrepancy in trying to get more aligned with how are we basing that there is a structured fee schedule on how we are billing our ambulance for those calls. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, so 2 thoughts. The first one's easy. This will come back again in the future. It would be great to include in the agenda summary or the attachments that we're not proposing charging other public agencies, right? We have some quasi-volunteer fire departments that are providing ambulance transport. And I think they're starting to get PTSD from feeling that the county is a partner, but they're always having to fight for their money and for support to not be taken away. I know that's not staff's intention, nor is it the board's, but I think the way we communicate on the agenda. But by the time they see it, it's the same time we see it, and they think that the board is proposing this, and no, it's not. It's just staff showing us cost recovery. So that's my request, is in the future when this comes back, if we could annotate somewhere to just include a little description that of who will be paying, that it won't be the public agencies or the volunteer fire departments. The second concern, in other counties that have a higher population density, ambulance companies can pay a fee to the county for the right to do business. In our county, that's inverted because we have such sparse population and low call volumes that we arguably have to subsidize ambulance service. We could have better response if we had more subsidy. So I guess I see this is appropriate from the standpoint of it hasn't shifted since the 90s, and the county is incurring costs. But what I'm less confident about is this a cost that will be passed on to insurance companies, whether government insurance or private insurance, or will this be taken out of pre-hospital care for the patients? Because frankly, the most important thing a county does is preserve life. And this may be going directly against that. It may be that whether they're a for-profit or a non-profit, private, public, this is money that's going to come out of their pocket, which could translate into reduced level of service. Do we have any confidence that we're not hurting the emergency response by taking this action?
I just wanted to add, they already pay. So currently they each pay about $30,000 a year.
Yeah, but we're talking about extracting more. When we do that, is that coming out of patient care? Is it the member of the public who calls 911 that will see a reduction in service due to these fees being passed on? And if that's the case, I'm less confident that it's a good idea. If we did some research and found that these fees can be billed to the insurance of the person who's getting that ride, yeah, let's bring more money into the system. I don't think we have an answer to that today. How do my colleagues feel about this?
Supervisor Haschak?
Well, do we know that we are not going to get reimbursed by the insurance company? Is there an answer to that?
I don't have that answer. I would have to ask MedStar and Adventist how they get reimbursed for those fees that they pay.
That seems like information we should have.
Supervisor Mulhern?
I guess my eyebrows, instead of using my pen. I would imagine that self-pay ambulance service is an incredibly small percentage. I think that the majority of calls for service for ambulances are billed either to private insurance or Medi-Cal. So I guess I'm fine with having the information come back. I'm just not sure about delaying this agenda item based on it.
Ms. Pierce, do you have a comment, or Ms. Antle?
CEO Antle, I tend to be in agreement with Supervisor Mulhern. Having worked in healthcare, not particularly on the emergency side, a majority of fees are passed on to the insurer to pay. And there's very few currently in the state of California that are uninsured right now, right? Now, do we know how that's going, HR 1's going to impact? No, we don't. But I believe we can get that answer and bring that back to you at next meeting, or maybe by the end of today even, to research on how they would reimburse those fees that are passed along.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein?
Thank you, Chair. My understanding and conversations with staff is that those agencies are aware of this fee and would like to confirm that they know that this is up for discussion today, correct?
You are right. Yes, they are. And we did get a quick response that says the ambulance providers can raise transport fees but can't bill for increased county rates. We do not have contracted rates in Mendocino County.
So maybe I'm wrong. My interpretation of that statement is these fees will be coming out of patient care, and that's concerning to me. I think we have a system today that's held together with duct tape and bubble gum and a lot of dedicated paid and volunteers. And I don't like the idea of removing subsidy, because I think that will translate into worse patient outcomes.
If I may, through the chair, I'm not sure what you mean by
It doesn't
care.
sound like if we pass this cost on to the ambulance provider, that the ambulance provider will be able to get reimbursed for that actual cost from insurance.
I think that's what you just said, right? I don't know who you got your
Jen,
comment from.
this came from the LIMSA.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if
so
I may, can
yeah.
we come back at end of day with this and let them take a minute and we'll come back to this one? Is that?
At the end of
Because
the-
I think I understand. It doesn't have to be at the end of the day. We've got like 5 or 6 more.
Yeah.
And if Janine and Tammy can work and get a clarifying statement to I think I understand what you're saying, Supervisor, but I want to make sure Jen and Tammy and Janine have a moment to discuss it, along with maybe 1 or 2 of the providers.
Yeah, absolutely fine with coming back. Supervisor Williams?
That works for me. I was hoping that would be the direction we take. When it comes back, I would like to hear the response from the actual providers, not just the LEMSA position is important. I value that. But I would also like to hear that from the providers confirmation that this won't negatively impact patient care.
Okay, we'll check to make sure if we can get them today. If not, we'll have to delay it to another day, if I understand what you're asking. Janine, Tammy, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If I may, through the chair, and I will make a note, we can, on the Exhibit X that gets posted, the approved one, we can make a note that this does not apply to public safety. Okay, so then the next department that will be coming forward is environmental health.
All right, so we have our environmental health fees. These are our staff costs, but not full department cost. So we wanted to make sure we make that clear. We do realize that there may be some fees that you guys pull, like cottage foods, farmers markets, but we feel that it's important that we at least show the board the cost, and you guys can make the decision on how you want to fund those or what you want to charge. So these fees are in front of you. I know Supervisor William, you asked about 91 realignment. We do put in about 250,000 of 91 public health, 91 realignment dollars into environmental health. And then there's also some general fund dollars that go into environmental health to meet the department needs and due to the different offsets of fees. But in front of you are the total cost of, not even the full cost, but the cost of the proposed based on the staffing workbook schedule. And so obviously if you have any questions, we are willing to answer those. We also know that last year you guys didn't want to raise the fees to full cost, so some we brought up at 50% with a proposal to bring them back and try to get them at actual cost. And so we have those, the CEO's office has those color coded so you can see what those are. You'll also notice that some of our fees went down. So not all fees went up, some fees went down, and then some fees went up. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I appreciate your work on this, and it helps to have it color-coded. So with looking at it on pages 6 and 7, all the purple ones are ones that we've tried to limit in the past because of the benefit of having farmers markets that are viable and thriving in our communities. And so I would propose that we keep all of the purple as is without any increase on pages 6 and 7.
Supervisor Williams.
Second.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. When an organization like the County of Mendocino sets fees, it should be with the expectation that we are providing a service and that we are constantly improving our ability to provide that service. This board, previous boards, has given direction to pay our staff more so that we have employees that are working well with our community and with our agency. So I think that keeping the fees the same is an unrealistic expectation given the board's direction as it relates to salaries. But I do also really want to support the small businesses that participate and work legally with the county by applying for food permits. And so I am concerned about the large increases of over 100% or adding a fee that wasn't there before. I would support a modest fee increase at 50% or below. And I think that for me, the expectation, as we do see that some fees have gone down based on, I would hope, time studies and evaluation by the department of how long things take, that we'll continue to see adjustments for our fee schedules, especially as it relates to environmental health and planning and building, based on the efficiencies that the county can make by improving our processes, especially for these kinds of permits. So my concerns in particular for EH were the temporary food booths and the cottage food, as well as the farmers market. So I just, for my colleagues, what I said was not in support of keeping it exactly as it is. I'm in support of a modest increase, and I'd like to hear from the two that haven't spoken already.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both Supervisor Williams and Haschak on the cottage fee, the cottage food, and the farmers market. The only public input I got on this entire agenda item was around those two. And as Supervisor Klein pointed out, they were fine with Ag Commissioner, but their issue was, and it was a strong issue, and I think they made a good case for themselves, was around those fee increases, and they would like to keep them the same. So that's what I'm going to support. Supervisor Klein?
Yeah, I appreciate all the comments given by my colleagues. I do think that we need to do something to temper certain fees with certain industries. I wanted to bring up something that was also raised by my constituent in the email that she sent to the board about how it's especially challenging to see unpermitted vendors. There's a couple of unpermitted vendors that are operating in Redwood Valley right now. I'm hearing a lot of feedback from my constituents, their frustrations around the impact that that's having with neighboring legal and permitted restaurants. So those operators are obviously they're not meeting the same standards, and so these businesses, as she says, allowed to operate outside the legal framework, it places an unfair burden on those who are doing everything correctly. So I just want to add that as kind of a caveat to this conversation is there is a lot of pressure for certain businesses that are now having competition that are able to have, less regulatory burden because they're just choosing to operate outside of these guidelines. So times are particularly tough for our food industry, our restaurants, and it's something that this board needs to be cognizant of.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, it's also a risk to the public. I'd like to know where I shouldn't be eating. Is there a referral, or how do we clean this up? We don't need to name them here, but is somebody following up?
I have had some conversations with staff. I think those conversations need to continue. I don't think that there's currently things that to my knowledge, we're not actively pursuing those, but that's outside of the scope of this conversation, so.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions.
If I may, through the chair, so just the direction is to keep the ones that are in purple the same as what they were previously, which is cottage food, food establishment fees, and then the farmer's market.
Supervisor Haschak?
Yes, that was the motion.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, if I may, through the chair, the next department up is, executive office. So the executive office has one fee that is really administered by planning and building, but due to code, it is listed under the environmental, or the executive office. So that's the film permit. When we looked at this, we looked at the individual that was performing these duties, which is the administrative service manager, and based the fee on the rate of that individual. So if there's any questions, it's actually a reduction.
I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
So the next one up is land improvement, and Jason Wise is on Teams or Zoom, if you could let him in.
Morning, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the updated fees. Most of them are less than 10% reduction, and that changes from the revision for the supervisorial rate, but most of them don't have much of a change. Most of them went down, a few went up. There's nothing, we didn't change the hours or the way we calculated the fees in any way, and so it's pretty standard from previous fee requests.
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. The next department is the museum.
Karen Matson, Museum Administrator, through the chair. The museum is bringing forward one fee. This is a request to eliminate the Wanacott Room use fee for the Roots of Motive Power Incorporated, following board direction provided at the March 24th, 2026 meeting. The Roots of Motive Power utilize the Wanacott Room in the museum on average 6 times per year for the purpose of hosting steam engineering, railroad operation, and safety classes for Roots of Motive Power members. Thank you for your time reviewing this today.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I appreciate the people from Roots who are here today and the Karen Madsen from the museum for bringing this forward. This was part of the MOU that we agreed to the other meeting. And there's a long history with the Railroad History Project with Roots in the museum. And this is to honor that history and the agreement that we just came up with.
Thank you. I'm seeing no other questions.
If I may, through the chair, so the direction will be to waive those fees, the 2 fees.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. The next is planning and building.
Good morning, Supervisors. Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. So the fees in front of you today are both for our building division and our planning division. For the building division, there's an approximate 2% increase that's proposed across all of the various fees. This is primarily based upon updated time study that showed we had some additional time being done by particularly our administrative staff in handling those permits. So it was a minor adjustment that had to happen, but it does result in a 2% fee increase. I'll also note that the building division is proposing to update our building valuation table and move from the 2021 table to the 2024 table. And this is used in determining a building's overall valuation for the purposes of determining the appropriate fee for that structure. There is a reduction, a pretty significant reduction for our education fee, reducing from 6% to 1%. And this was based upon actual cost associated with education and training for the building division. That fee may adjust in the future, but as it is right now, we feel confident with reduction from 6% to 1%. There is a new fee as well for floodplain permit reviews, and that's based upon staff time at the weighted rate. For the planning division, there's an overall decrease of 2% in applicant cost. However, I do want to highlight there is a particular fee, this relates to Mendocino Historical Review Board permits, where the department is recommending that there be an increase in that fee. What you see in the memo that was prepared for today's meeting is an analysis of the staff time spent, and as the board is likely aware, most of our planning division fees are subject to cost recovery, so meaning if we exceed that average processing time, we then bill the applicant at staff time for the remaining processing associated with it. So with the MHRB fees, you will see the analysis including the sample size that was utilized in determining the actual staff time spent. And we're seeing that for the majority of our fees, we're having to ask for additional deposits 100% of the time. So that is why we have requested for a fee increase. The other alternative is if the board wants to keep the fees as is, they would still be subject to cost recovery. It just is staff time associated with obtaining that additional funds from the applicant. So we're happy either direction, but since we were seeing that it was 100% of the time for some of these fees that we are requesting additional funds, we thought it was important to bring forward that discussion to the board. The other fee that I just want to highlight is the deletion of the Gualala Municipal Advisory Council referral fee. And as you see in the memo, this is based upon that it was originally established for the GMAC secretary, which that position is no longer existing in the GMAC structure. So we cannot continue to charge that fee. So it's just removal of that fee. It puts them at the same spot as all the other MACs. We did notify GMAC of this fee change coming forward and received no comments. That concludes my presentation. Happy for any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, on the MHRB fee, is it accurate to see that as not a fee increase, but just being upfront about the cost? Because the applicants are being billed for it regardless. Now we're just going to tell them before they start the process what it'll be.
Yes, exactly. So I think we're seeing that, like I said, 100% of the time, and you see the sample size. I mean, we don't have, big windfalls of MHRB permits, but we're seeing across the permits that we have done that it is 100% of the time.
That's a great comment. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. That one was also on my list, and I'm just wondering what opportunities does the department have to help in Mendocino, and particularly for businesses that are trying to work through the challenging economic times? Are there opportunities to provide more documentation up front so they're not having to go through more lengths or a lengthy permit process and then not being approved? Is there something we can do to help minimize the impact?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think staff continues to try to put that public-facing information out there of what makes a quality application, so that way there's less back and forth that's required, because that's where you start to see staff time really get eaten up. The other item is that I know that the MHRB has really taken a focus on trying to find ways where there's minor adjustments being done to previously approved projects, to not have to have that come back through for an additional review, and instead bring it as like a staff memo to the review board for their consideration. So I think between partnership between the board and planning staff as well, we are looking at those opportunities constantly of how can you streamline the process and make it easier for folks to come through. And we continue to focus on that. And of course, looking at, can we have more templatized, sort of documentation to reduce the overall staff expense that's associated with it. And what the board may or may not be aware, for each project, we keep a fee tracking sheet. So at any time, we're able to take a look and see where we're at in terms of the processing, and also look at whether or not it's outside the norm. So for example, the major MHRB permit fee, you can see we had one project that came in underneath that fee type, and the staff spent 21 hours working on that particular permit. However, our fee is proposed to come in at 12 hours because we realize that could be an anomaly out of what we could see coming in the future.
I'm not seeing any more questions. Thank you.
If I may, through the chair, the next and final department is social services.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, CEO Antle. My name's Jen Thompson. I'm Senior Program Manager with Social Services. I'm here today to speak about the proposed updates to the Public Administrator and Public Guardian fee schedules. For context, the Public Administrator program manages the estates of deceased individuals, while the Public Guardian program provides conservatorship for living individuals who can't handle their own affairs. They're separate programs with distinct legal authorities, but they both operate under court oversight, and the Public Guardian program has fewer cost recovery opportunities due to the financial status of our clients. For the Public Administrator program, most of the fees are set by statute, so the only one that we are looking to change is the extraordinary services rate. Extraordinary services are really work that's done outside of routine state administration, such as like managing a business or handling a legal dispute on behalf of the decedent. Previously, these services were billed under separate staff rates, which we are consolidating into a single rate of $103 per hour, and that's based on fully loaded staff cost. For the Public Guardian program, the proposed updates are going to simplify the fee structure. We have like a 9-tier system based on the size of the state of the client, but most of our clients are coming in with around $2,000 because they're in receipt of SSI funds, so they're capped at $2,000 asset limit. So there's no really a point in having the 9-tiered system set up for them if we're never going to recover that money. So we are proposing to simplify that and come up with a annual rate of $1,500, which aligns closely with our projected actual cost of $1,506. We are also looking to align the investigation rate to match up with the Mendocino County Superior Court's established rate for conservatorship investigations, which is $600. Taken together, these changes are going to result in a simpler and more consistent fee schedule that balances cost recovery with collectability. Also, all the fees remain subject to court approval on a case-by-case basis. So you guys will sign off on it, and then we will ask the court also, and they will sign off on it. The full memo is in your board packet, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So those are all the departments. I don't know if we want to, if environmental or emergency medical services was able to get an answer.
We have a preliminary answer because we were able to speak to one. We weren't able to get both. So it does not impact patient care. It does impact overall costs for the operator, which would then get could impact other things. But if they would add it to billing to the insurance, but they bill as a bundled rate, in a sense, the full cost. And as you know, their reimbursement is never what they ask for, because private insurance and everyone in Medi-Cal doesn't reimburse very well. They get reimbursed what the insurance would reimburse. They do feel that it could be an impact on their overall business by raising, but they'd like to have a larger conversation. So one recommendation is we could allow the other fees to go forward and hold off on these fees. We currently, or keep them at the rate of $30,000 each, and work with them on an alternative method to work on those dispatch fees.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, so I like that suggestion of just holding off and having the conversation. They should be in the room with us. I see ambulance, whether it's private or public, as a system, and they're not going to be able to bill more. And so we're pulling money out of the system. That's going to affect the patient. That's my take, unless somebody comes forward and can show otherwise. So I'm hesitant to support the fee increase without more of a conversation. They may have been aware of it, but I don't think it's quite the same as inviting them to the table. One thing that's gone really right in recent times is I think there's more trust between the county and the EMS providers. A collaborative effort to figure out how we make progress on the overall system. And I don't want this to take away from that. I want them to feel like they have a seat to at least have the discussion with us, even if in the end we have to set a higher fee.
Question for staff. Does bringing just this one item back, does that create an issue for you on any kind of timeline?
If I may, through the chair, we would need to re-establish the public hearing, which does take some time. It would probably be in June that we would be able to bring it back due to the timelines of noticing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We can proceed with accepting the ones as is and then bringing just back in emergency medical services, for which I'm not sure which few fees exactly, but if we can call those out, we can bring those back separately.
Okay. Board, we've been presented with a couple of different options here. One is to continue with the current fees and then have the discussion with the agencies as Ms. Miller discussed, or bring it back at a later item after they've had the discussion. Which would the board prefer? Supervisor Haschak?
Well, I think that what we're saying is continue with the current fees, have the discussions, and then bring it back. Is that correct?
Works for me.
Okay.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
If I may, through the chair, can we call out exactly which fees are remaining the same? Is it the EMS-based hospital fee?
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Dispatch fee would remain the same for now.
Those, the tiers.
Yeah.
So all of the dispatch fees, and then are we holding on the EMS-based hospital as well? Or is that?
No, I don't
that
think
one's
so.
fine.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
So it's the dispatch fees?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Pierce, again, that was your last one?
If I may, through the chair, yes, that is it.
Thank you. All right, we'll open the item up for public comment. Anybody in the room? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay. Back to the board. Supervisor Klein?
Yeah, I want to thank staff's time working on this update to our fee schedule. A lot of these are, minor changes. I know that staff's really being cognizant of the increased pressure to our stakeholders, all the businesses, the nonprofits, et cetera, that would be impacted by these various fees. So I appreciate the effort that went into this. I want to echo one of Supervisor Mulheron's comments from earlier about how so many of our fees have gone up over the last several years because we've had 3 years of increased labor fees or labor costs for the county. And so these fees are driven by the staff time that it takes to administer these services, and that's why there has been such an increase to these fees over the years. Moving forward, I'm hopeful that we can have increased efficiencies to hopefully continue to bring down as many fees as possible.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschak?
Well, I move approval of all the changes that we made to this fee schedule.
Okay. So we It is 10:22. We'll close the public hearing. And Supervisor Hashtag, if you could restate that, please.
I move approval of the fee schedule as presented with all the changes that we made.
Ms. Pierce, you're comfortable with
If I
what?
may through the chair, yes, we're comfortable.
Okay. Do we have a second? I'll second. So first by Supervisor Hashtag, seconded by myself. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, it's 10:25. We will take a 15-minute break. Lily?
I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today Visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
A beautiful, clean river doesn't start here. It starts here. What we put down our storm drains goes straight from our streets into our local creeks. Simple changes can make a big impact. Like when you wash your car, the best solution is washing at a professional car wash. But if you wash at home, divert wash water to an area where it can soak into the ground, like a planter strip. Also, empty your bucket of dirty wash water in a sink. The wash water will make its way to the treatment plant, where it is cleaned. You probably know how to pick up your pet's poop when you are out on a walk. After all, it's the neighborly thing to do. But what about the pet waste in your backyard? Pick it up regularly, and especially before rain or irrigation water washes any of it into a backyard drain. Your pet's poo is full of bacteria and nutrients that can contaminate our creeks. Scoop the poop, bag it, and put it in your garbage. When tending to your yard or garden, check the weather and prevent over-irrigation. Runoff of fertilizer, herbicides, landscape materials, compost piles, and leaf debris pollute our creeks. Remember, timing is everything. Pick up any litter or trash that may get into the streets. If you grab it before water or wind arrives, it doesn't have a chance of ending up in our creeks. It's up to each of us to take care of our creeks and rivers. They're ours to protect. Find out more at streets2creeks.org.
Hi, I'm Russ.
And I'm Lori.
And we're part of the Employee Engagement Team. The Employee Engagement Team is a voluntary group that's made up of county staff across all levels and from all departments.
This team is the one that puts together the annual employee survey, which helps us find ways to help employees feel heard and appreciated.
In connection with the employee survey, we want to announce the engagement team's spring campaign, which we're calling Gratitude Month. Gratitude Month provides some simple ways for staff to show appreciation to those they work with every day for their help and support.
We all have great colleagues that we work with that make our jobs a little easier or more enjoyable. And Gratitude Month hopes to provide little ways to help recognize those people around us.
Each department will receive a packet with instructions and materials for their common room, including things like a gratitude wall or simple terraways to help say thank you to someone. We hope you'll take advantage of these opportunities to recognize those around you for their contributions.
Keep an eye open for emails announcing the start of the campaign, as well as the arrival of those packets in your office.
And remember that the employee engagement team is open to anyone, and we're always looking for new members. If you'd like to be part of what we're doing or have comments or questions, you can reach us at employee_engagement@mendocinocounty.gov.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Visit mendoready.org. It's our one-stop shop for emergency information. You can sign up for emergency alerts, find your pre-established evacuation zone on our current emergencies map, and find hazard and preparedness information.
Imagine you're faced with a disaster such as a wildfire, and you're ordered to evacuate. I'll bet you wish you had more time in that moment. Now's your chance to buy yourself that time. Sign up for Nixle and Mendo Alerts on our website, mendoready.org. Do it today.
If you want your family to be as resilient as possible, it's important to take some time today and visit mendoready.org, where you can look up your pre-established evacuation zones on our current emergencies map. You can also find important tools to help maintain your situational awareness, such as the Alert California wildfire cameras and the Caltrans road conditions cameras. We hope you'll take some time today to prepare so that your family can be Mendo ready. Thank you.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
A beautiful, clean river doesn't start here. It starts here. What we put down our storm drains goes straight from our streets into our local creeks. Simple changes can make a big impact. Like when you wash your car, the best solution is washing at a professional car wash. But if you wash at home, divert wash water to an area where it can soak into the ground, like a planter strip. Also, empty your bucket of dirty wash water in a sink. The wash water will make its way to the treatment plant, where it is cleaned. You probably know how to pick up your pet's poop when you're out on a walk. After all, it's the neighborly thing to do. But what about the pet waste in your backyard? Pick it up regularly, and especially before rain or irrigation water washes any of it into a backyard drain. Your pet's poo is full of bacteria and nutrients that can contaminate our creeks. Scoop the poo, bag it, and put it in your garbage. When tending to your yard or garden, check the weather and prevent over-irrigation. Runoff of fertilizer, herbicides, landscape materials, compost piles, and leaf debris pollute our creeks. Remember, timing is everything.
We are going to continue on with agenda item R4. Discussion and possible action, including approval of the recommended Community Correction Partnership, CCP, budget for fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $8,700,629, excluding growth funds, authorizing Chief Probation Officer to update the approval budget by the amount of growth funds received, if any less mandated allocation to the local innovation subaccount by designating the funds as contingency or reserve, and authorizing Chief Probation Officer to implement the CCP budget. Mr. Locatelli.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, Board, County staff. Eisen Locatelli, Chief Probation Officer. So before you today, I'd just like to do a quick reminder. This isn't a probation-specific funding source. Statutorily, I am the chair of CCP, and there's an executive committee that meets regularly, especially during February, March time, to go through the budget. And we voted, and this is the approved budget, minus one executive member who did vote no, and I'll explain why when we get to that section. We've already seen the recommended action. You have a slideshow presentation for quick highlights, overview, and question and answer option. So turning into the presentation, you can see what we're projecting the base funds to be, and then you can see what the carryover is from previous years, and then the total available is what we're recommending for the budget. The projection is based on CSAC, and I think I've explained this quite a few different times, but it is a guesstimate. Last year, they estimated that we would get $4,820,796. That's what we were anticipating. The May revise came in, and it was $4,175,411. So, you can see what a drastic difference that is, roughly $650,000. And then the actuals was $4,254,668. So from what we built the budget on to what we actually got, there was a $566,000 shortfall. And so I've been pretty conservative of how we build budgets and why we're doing it. We don't we carry the contingency, and we're not calling it a reserve because that's able to then roll right in for expenses. The board is authorizing the CPO to do that as necessary, so nobody's short and then coming to the board asking for general fund to contribute for those employees, or we're not cutting services to the community with our CBOs or our partners that we provide funds to. So that's the strategy behind that. So this slide is page 4, and there's a correction. We're anticipating that this is what the sheriff's office will have, but when the sheriff showed up, his budget didn't ask for the $50,000 that you see in the star down on the bottom. Last year we had approved him to make claims above and beyond what he was budgeted for if there was parolees or PRCS folks in the jail who had significant medical transportation costs, and the jail staff had to sit in hospitals. When they came forward this year with their budget, they didn't have that in their line item. It's my preference that if we're, as a board, going to approve an expenditure, that it's in a line item. So in May, we're going to go back and actually vote once it's on the agenda and we've met the Brown Act requirements to put that there. So actually, the CCP has approved $1,913,234 to the sheriff, which would bump the contingency up by $50,000. The total that the Board of Supervisors is approving is the exact same. There's no change for you. It's just a line item change to what the CCP has approved. And after our May meeting, I expect it to look exactly as the board sees it today. But I wanted to explain that to you. So next. So this is the breakdown for the board and for the public of what each of the departments is expending their funds on. All of the departments, this is what they requested, and this is what they were authorized to receive. So I know last year there was conversations about, you know, maybe there's other ways to give the sheriff more. This is what the sheriff's requesting, and this is what he voted to approve. So hopefully this year we don't have those conversations. And back on that last slide, you saw the hospitalization at the very bottom, and it was still asterisked. So probation, same thing. You can see exactly what the FTEs are for, where the funding is going, what we're paying for for electronic monitoring, staff, sanctions and incentives for our PRCS populations. There are sanctions matrix and an incentive matrix for things like getting their GEDs or driver's licenses. To use the sanction matrix, we have to have an incentive matrix. It's in statute. So next, again, just by department, you see district attorney, you see public defender. The public defender's office, when we get further on, is where some of the dissent came from.
Sir, can I interrupt you real quick? I believe we have a question. Supervisor Wayne?
Yeah, if you can go back 2 slides. Forward one. That last item, AB 109, planning and administration costs. I see a lot of the expenses broken down by a fraction of full-time employee. This one's not, and I was curious, is that because it's outside resources or it's just hard to associate with staff?
So 2 years ago in the CCP budget was $100,000, and it went to all counties and they got to break it out. The governor decided to strike that to CCPs. So we no longer were paid to do the administrative or the planning. And if we don't have to do the planning, we didn't have to submit it to the state any longer. But we still obviously have to run the meeting, and I'm still required to sit before the board and do the CCP presentation, put all these slideshows together. So the cost, instead of coming directly from the state, is just baked into the budget and pulled out this way.
Okay.
Thank you.
So again, just each department that gets money has a slide with what its expenditures are for and what the cost amount is for the board to review later or the public to see. This is the some of the CBOs or the service provider slides. So you can see geo reentry. Some of you have come to that. You see you've seen the graduations, you've seen the presentations by geo. It's the day reporting center. Geo is the company name. It operates across the street from you in a combined space with my pretrial unit. And they're there daily meeting with folks in the jail. They start the programming with some of them, and then when they're released, there's a reentry program where they're working with them. Ford Street Sober Living Environment, we're able to have a contract with Ford Street to put folks into their SLE. That one's a little bumpy with CalAIM rollout and partnership. We're still working through that to see. CalAIM may be picking up a good portion of that, so we haven't been expending the full amount with Ford Street due to the CalAIM and partnership. But there's a way for us to still put folks into an SLE so they're not on the streets or living other people's houses that might still be using drugs. Mendo Lake Alternative Services, that contract's bounced back and forth between probation and the DA for many years out of the general fund. CCP took that over, I want to say it was last year or the year before. And that's an alternative for folks to get community service hours in lieu of incarceration and to do some community restoration projects. They work at the fairgrounds, hospice, Goodwill, just to name a few of the places. This year, well, we came up with this idea last year, but all the recruitments didn't work out. This year, I think we're very close to having somebody identified to go into this public safety grants position. They'll be overseen by my department, but they'll work for CCP as a whole to go after specifically criminal justice grants, and not just write the grant, but then oversee it. Often, a lot of our departments are passing on grants because of the amount of time and work that you have to do the reporting requirements. So this could be a way to bring in funds to the criminal justice system and hopefully offset some of the general fund costs, or to bring in new programs that we don't currently have. Gives you variances, changes, which percentages are going up. I mentioned a no vote, and Public Defender's Office went up 10%, and there was one of our executive members that didn't want that percentage to be as high as it was. Everybody else, all the other votes were yes for every other department, and the overall budget minus the one. As the percentages, though, they're pretty in line with some of our cost increases or other things that are going on service-wise throughout the departments that are providing or backfilling the work from AB 109. Some of that just talks to you about what some of the changes were from fiscal year 25-26. The Sheriff's Office did some adjusting of who their FTEs are. Probation did the same, adjusting some of our staffing that we're paying for. Same, just more highlights for you to see. Some things I've already discussed. So in our bylaws, how our reserve is created is the growth funds. When the growth funds come in, we don't know what those are going to be, but when we do get them, based on performance that we do, 15% of those are pulled directly from the growth, which isn't part of our budget, and put into a dedicated reserve. With how to pull those reserves, it specifies how we can access those. The innovation sub-account, the growth fund automatically by statute, 10% is pulled out and put into the local innovation sub-account. And then the remainder, the other 75%, is rolled into the contingency for the next year. And that's how we're able to build our budgets. And that gives you a, since inception, what has come in the base, what has come in the growth. You can see the variables in growth. Some years there was a really high amount, and some years there's zero. I've talked about this before. When I took over, TCP was in a deficit. They were always looking back about 3 years and authorizing expenditures to those levels. So we were getting about 80% of what we needed. We didn't have a contingency or a reserve, and we didn't have a policy for it either. So now we have bylaws, a policy, and contingencies as well as reserves, and we're able to float when we have anomalies. So you could see we're estimating 26, 27 at that number, but I told you we ended up $566,000 short from the estimate the state gave us last fiscal year. So we're projecting to expend a number, and I'm hopeful that, you know, even if we're going over by 260, which was what was happening this year, that we're still going to be able to cover that for the next 4 to 5 years, even if we don't clip spending. I don't believe we're going to need to, because every time we get a growth that comes in, that raises our base the same amount going forward. So if we can stay on track, if we stay fiscally solvent, if we stay the way that we're doing business, we'll be able to grow, as Supervisor Williams has pointed out during normal general fund conversations. We're going to grow our base and our growth more than inflation is happening. And so we're at CCP, we should be solid and not needing to come to the general fund, covering the FTEs, covering any potential COLAs or raises that the board is giving the employees that are in these units. And then we now have a potential to have a one-time expenditure for technology-related reasons for CCP departments. Talking to the sheriff, those would be things like new technology for virtual options for court appearances, which help reduce transportation costs, waiting costs for public defenders and DAs and probation officers sitting around waiting for inmate transportation. So there's some potential for efficiencies in the one-time expenditure category out of our contingency. Yeah, so the revise, the state, I mean, these are things that are variables we can't control, but we're prepared to adjust. All things I've already explained. And that's the end of the slideshow presentation for CCP, Community Corrections Partnership. Happy to answer any other questions.
Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, Chief, I appreciate that you're putting in there the analysts to go after the law enforcement grants, you know, because I think that's something that you've been envisioning for a long time, and I'm glad it's coming to, it's in the budget. My question is do you see that as continuing because the funding is so variable?
The group committed to a 2-year pilot project to see what could happen if we're successful, what the money that's brought in, what programs we have, and then we'll review. If we do it right, then of course we'll be bringing in enough grants and reasons to keep it going. Right. It should offset itself if we're doing it correctly. If we didn't do it right, then we would cut the program and look for another way. But okay. I'm hopeful that in 2 years from now, when I'm back before you talking about this, that it's a successful program and that it potentially has even grown staffing-wise, and that the county's bringing in far more revenue because of it.
Right. Well, great success on it.
Yes, Supervisor Williams.
Do you have any sense of the stability of the grant opportunities? You know, when we look at HR1, it looks like it's mostly targeted to hurt our county. What do you see for these grant programs? Are there any opportunities opening up?
There's always grants available in the criminal justice arena, and some of them are non-competitive. And so those ones, you know, is low-hanging fruit. Some of the competitive grants are built for rural counties. You know, Prop 64, some of the marijuana-related grants. It's just the administration of them and only having 10% sometimes built in for the government, and then the CBO getting the 90, just the fiduciary responsibility often, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And so if we had somebody that's outside of our FTEs, who's able to monitor these, apply for these, and hit all the supervision requirements and the reporting requirements, that's a win for the county, and it could help offset general fund or bring in programs that we're just not able to sustain as the government.
If we do get awarded any grants, is that something that we could attach to the CEO report, or you could give it our regular department head item?
Yeah, I could do it at the R1 section, but also, you know, they're going to work in probation and be reporting to us, but these grants will be identified by like the public defender, the sheriff, and then they'll utilize this staff because they'll have the department expertise and help the person apply for it. And then the person would, you know, go to that department while they do that work, but they'll be inside the probation department. And then we'll report that to the CCP Executive Committee and your board if that's your wish.
Yeah, I would like to hear about it. I suppose whether if we've received a grant, that's big news, but even if it's just lessons learned, if we don't receive one and we have a change in strategy for, you know, how to iterate on the next round, I think that's also valuable.
And I believe your current policy requires me to come before when we're applying for these grants, so you'll get that opportunity to know what we're going after as well.
Just a quick question for me. Under Sheriff's Office parole hold costs, could you describe that a little bit and the need?
Yeah, so obviously AB 109 changed how inmates go to state prison or to jails. If it's a non, they're being housed in a jail instead of a prison. Parole, they've gone to a state prison and they've come out on a supervision by a state agency, and when they violate, they no longer go back to a state prison, they go to a county jail. So there's multiple ways to address that as a sheriff's department. You could ask for FTEs to deal with the workload increase. Some small counties would want a straight bed day rate. So, you know, for each day that a parolee is sitting in the jail, you would have a number associated with the cost of that, and you would multiply it. When this started, the sheriff at the time wanted the FTEs because, you know, as costs go up for employees, CCP is essentially covering their raises, where a bed day rate, you know, is a flat number that you're only getting paid for if you have a parolee in the system. So this is kind of a double dipping in a way. You're getting the best of both worlds by having FTEs and a bed day rate cost. And I think the CCP Executive Committee is probably topped out about where we are right now for the parole holds as a flat line item plus FTEs. If it were to raise, I know that I personally would want to pick one or the other, but I'm comfortable with the sheriff's office where they are right now with the FTE pays plus the parole bed day rate pay.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions, so we'll go to the public. You were finished, correct?
Yes, this one is completely done.
Thank you, sir. We'll go to the public for this item. Anybody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comment online.
Okay, back to the board for action or discussion. Supervisor Haschak?
I'll move the recommended Community Corrections Partnership budget for fiscal year 2026 to 27.
Second.
Okay. First by Supervisor Haschak, second by Supervisor Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And then item R5, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of the Mendocino County Juvenile Justice Plan, date March 2026, representing Mendocino County's comprehensive multi-agency juvenile justice plan, CMJJP, approval of the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act, JJCPA, budget for fiscal year 26-27, and authorization for the Chief Probation Officer to implement the JJCPA budget. Mr. Locatelli, whenever you're ready.
All right. Good morning again, Board, Chair, County Staff, Eisen Locatelli, Chief Probation Officer. Essentially the same story as the CCP. I'm the statutory chair of the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council. On this one, you have what's called the Consolidated Plan, and for those who don't like acronyms, on the very back page of this plan, there's a whole acronym legend, and there's a lot of them. So I'll try not to use all of the acronyms. I'll try to say it the best I can. So that plan is a 29-page document. For the public, it looks like this. It's an attachment for this agenda item. The slideshow is, our version of trying to do a Cliff Notes for you, something a little easier to follow, digest, and understand why we're doing this. You have your agenda summary, so you know you're accepting the plan and you're approving the JJCPA budget, which is the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act funds. And we'll just quickly go through what we're doing here and why. The JJCC is responsible for developing the comprehensive multi-agency juvenile justice plan. There's contributing information in here from when you go to the next page of the slideshow. These are the folks that are represented on the JJCC. They're statutorily required memberships. So again, I'm the chair, and then you have your sheriff, your DA, public defender, city police department representative is Ukiah, MCOE, County Office of Ed. We hold the meetings there on their campuses, and Ukiah Unified School District being the largest campus, largest group from the school districts attends. Our social services department, mental health, Superior Court, and then we have community-based folks that are there. You also, your chairs, statutorily required to be on this committee. So Chair Norvell's in attendance this year. And keep going, you'll see what our requirements are, is to meet no less than twice a year, where we do the budget in the spring, and then in the September meeting we do the outcomes from what the expenditures were. We're required to submit to OYCR, which is the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, the expenditure plan. That's why we do this in April, so that we can meet our deadline by the May 1st for reporting to them. And then we meet in September because we have another deadline October 1st to report what happened to the money and what we did and what our program outcomes were. So just gives you, again, we met on March 20th. The program was approved. Some of the funding on the next page. Most of this is prevention intervention. This is really how we're able to help give money to CBOs, some of the community-based organizations, to do some of the prevention intervention work. So hopefully, if you do a lot of work upstream, hopefully there's not a lot of downstream costs. Operating a juvenile hall can be costly, not only in dollars to the county, but impacts to the community, families. Having kids incarcerated, taking them out of their daily lives and putting them into a justice setting can be traumatizing, but it could also be a way to save their lives, to get them off of drugs back into school. The snack pack program, is in my opinion, a really good program. I think personally, having to worry about food when you're a kid, is troubling. So if we can keep the kids going to school, I think they have their best chance of being successful and out of the criminal justice system. So this is a way for our homeless families to ensure that their children, are fed on the weekends and holidays when the schools aren't offering their meals. The GREAT program is a way for us to get into schools at the 4th grade level as probation officer and law enforcement, and make connections with kids, teach them resistance to gang programs, and let them see our faces in a setting that isn't a traumatic event when we're responding to a situation that's already happened. If they know us before those events, we'll have better relationships. So school districts have wanted us to provide this, and we're able to with great. Currently, the only certified instructors in our county are probation officers, and I've been trying to get the Ukiah Police Department and Fort Bragg Police Department through the certification process. They're not offered very often, and they're out of state, but we'll be able to fund this through the JJCPA grant when those trainings become available. Both those agencies want to teach with us. So that's great. And then Impact is an internal program we use as an alternative to some incarceration and an incentive-based way to get kids motivated. MCYP, the Mendocino County Youth Project, we provide funding. They can do direct referrals from the school if there's a low-level situation to get services. Or we can refer to them also if we have low-level crimes, and we think that's a more appropriate way to handle it rather than being in a juvenile hall. And then the restorative Restorative Justice Youth Court. Some of you may remember Teen Peer Court. That's what that program is. RCS is currently running it. It was a grant that the county got where we were just the fiduciary overseer of it. That grant expired. It was a 3-year grant. A lot of the juvenile justice advocates wanted us to continue this, and so we were able to fund it out of the JJCPA. We had to scale back the cost significantly, but it's still a viable program in the county as an alternative to incarceration, and it's also a way for schools to directly refer to the program without involving the justice system. So that's your budget for the JJCPA. That's your slideshow presentation. The consolidated plan is the 29-page document. It has all of the stakeholders' opinions. A couple paragraphs from each of the stakeholders are in there about what they think the system's lacking, needs, strengths, our outcomes, some of the crimes that we're seeing, our programs really that we're offering in custody are listed in here, and what we're expending some of our dollars towards with the CBOs who provide services inside the juvenile hall. So that's what this agenda item was. I'm open for questions. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, I think part of the success of the program may be attributed to the continuity of leadership. You've been at this for a long time, and your team's general attention to outcome detail. When you draft recommendations for how to budget funds for the upcoming year, what do you see as the most impactful programs of the past? Do the needs change over time, and that's why we have to reevaluate which programs to budget, or are there outcomes that were so substantial that we want to try to repeat those programs in coming years?
Yeah, good question. When I look at program outcomes and the data, those are all things that we're considering whether we want to continue with a program. You want to get stakeholder feedback, so our stakeholders are the incarcerated youth, asking them if the programs are working, checking to see if it's having an impact, checking on the recidivism data, checking on 2 years ago, I would have told you we had hardly any females in juvenile hall, so we didn't really need a program dedicated for females. That isn't true today. 40% of the population in the last 6 months has been female. So bringing in the girl circle as a program, just looking at trends and trying to anticipate and adjust accordingly.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, thank you for the presentation and the plan. I really enjoy reading it, and I move the recommended action.
Second.
Yeah, I just have one question. On the meals program, there was a lot of discussion and comments around that, all positive at the last meeting. What I found interesting was how the meals get delivered and all the people involved in that. Could you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, so this is it's an MCOE program, and they had a grant, and to my knowledge, the grant ran out. They had volunteers and donations, but it wasn't sustainable, and the program probably was going to fall apart. They came to our committee, pitched the idea, and how the meals are delivered is voluntary through UPS Brown Truck through the county. They do it for free. They're running already, so they'll put the meals in and do the delivery to the sites, and then the school does the administration, packages it and sends it out. So, you know, you guys had a proclamation on volunteers. You know, this is another example of the volunteers in the county, plus MCOE, plus the partnership with JJCC to ensure that our, you know, our less fortunate populations throughout the county, countywide, are receiving services. You know, a lot of services seem to be city focused, whether that's Ukiah or Fort Bragg, and this program really does outreach into Round Valley, Anderson Valley, some of our less fortunate areas.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. We'll go to the public. Seeing anybody in the room, Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board, and I believe we've had a motion and a second. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item R6, discussion and possible action, including acceptance of the Mendocino County, California Juvenile Justice Realignment Block Grant, annual plan for fiscal year 26-27, dated March 20th, 2026, acceptance of the JJRBG budget for fiscal year 26-27, and authorization for the Chief Probation Officer to implement the JJRBG budget. Mr. Locatelli?
Yeah, good morning again, Chair, board members, county staff. Eisen Locatelli, Chief Probation Officer. This one is a little different than the previous two. This is a probation-specific funding source, and it is because of SB 823, which closed the Department of Juvenile Justice or California Youth Authority, depending on what you remember of it, but it was essentially the state prison system for youth, and it requires all the counties to deal with the deep end of the juvenile justice system. So essentially, if a youth were to commit murder in the old days, theoretically, they could go to the state system. The state system, by the time I became chief, had 2 prisons in California, and they've closed those, and essentially 58 counties are now responsible for replicating that. You can understand the economies of scales issues that this has created. The Chief Probation Officers of California, my state association, was opposed to this. I believe Mendocino County itself voted no and was opposed to this legislatively. So now we're stuck dealing with those impacts, and some of those impacts, you know, go through this plan. So I'll go through it with you with that introduction, which, you know, might be a little biased, I admit. I was opposed to this. I lived through this, and I've tried to implement it. There may be some others who agree with this theory, but I'm an operator of it, and so that's my opinion. So the plan, again, you know, there's a 33-page attachment. That's the Realignment Block Grant annual plan we're required to submit to be able to receive these funds to deal with the offsets. I have requested at different points from County Council an opinion as to, you know, how you can expend these funds. The statute hasn't been tested thoroughly. I think we're most likely going to need case law at some point, because if you ask, you know, Office of Youth and Community Restoration, they'll verbally tell you that it can be used for a more expansive thing than the statute says. We don't currently have any youth in secure track, so we don't have an expense, in my opinion. That's the way the statute reads. But there are some who believe that you can use it for prevention or intervention to stop kids from coming into a secure track. So I haven't taken that approach yet. Not sure what would happen if you were expending money and the state said ultimately that was wrong. I think County Council's working on the issue, and one day the county, in my opinion, it's a Prop 30 protected source. If they were to try to take the money that we have back, I think that they would have a responsibility to take the realigned population back. But those haven't been fully tested or vetted yet, so it's a little bit more opining on my part than I usually like to do for the board. I generally try to stick to facts, but I think that will be an issue that you may see surface in the next few years. So going through the slideshow, I basically explained how this came about. These are the laws that changed and the timing that this happened in. So the funding formula was set, and it's going to be revised. So, again, the states set something and then they're revising it as they go. So, some people would use building the plane as they fly. Some people would say, it wasn't fully understood how the realignment was going to be funded, what were the percentages that we were going to get. When you go to the funding page, you can see some of the other difficulties running this program. You can see projected versus actuals. It's really hard to budget when you have swings like that, when you're projecting to get 836,000 and you get 380,000, or you have the flip where it's you're projected to get 332,000 and you get 802,000. So the plan here, I've said this for quite some time, is unless we have 3 or 4 youth, we wouldn't want to operate our own secure track. To reopen a C unit would cost the county roughly $1 million, plus or minus. So what we would do is save these monies in case we have youth that are in this situation, and we would use our contracts. So, if you had essentially 2 or 3 kids in this scenario, you're looking at over $750,000 to $800,000 to cover those costs to send them out of county for that year. So if we were to have 2 kids in this scenario, and the small county minimum is $250,000, we wouldn't even be able to cover that. And that's part of my objection on SB 823 and this closure. These costs used to be more like $25,000 a year per kid, and now you're looking at about $350,000 because counties can say what the price is. There's no state system that controls it, and the cost of scales, we already talked about that. Also, I was in a position when our kid was at DJJ and they closed it and the kid was going to come back. I believe I got 43 no's from counties before the 44th county agreed to take the youth. There's nothing that requires a county to accept our youth, unlike the state system where this happened. You don't have a choice. Counties have choices to take other kids' counties. So we're not currently, even though we contract with other counties, we have their kids come to us, not for secure track. We don't have any secure track in our facility. And the reason is we have a linear juvenile hall at this point. And it's, in my opinion, the best interest not to put a 14-year-old with a 24-year-old. So technically you could have up to 25-year-olds in a juvenile hall if they were to commit a crime like murder on their 16th birthday. And that's the longest they're going to be kept under this law. It's up to their 25th birthday in a juvenile hall in a county. So we're hopeful that we can continue to contract with counties that are much bigger than us. That would be Shasta County, Sonoma County, and I believe Merced County are the 3 that we're currently contracting with in these scenarios in Madera, but we haven't actually used that before. So continuing, these are some more of the challenges that we're facing, some of the things that we're doing in preparation. Juvenile halls weren't, built for long-term housing. I would find it difficult to imagine somebody spending 8 years in our juvenile hall structurally. It wasn't built for that. But we are trying to, have more vocational opportunities and higher education opportunities for the kids who are graduating or who have graduated. Working with MCOE to do that. The school is in juvenile hall, but it's run by MCOE, not by Mendocino County Probation. The last couple pages just show you some more of the annual plan, what we're doing, partnerships that I mentioned, and then the JJRBG budget shows you what came in, the carry forwards, where the expenditure were, and those are the years that we did have kids in secure track. We currently have none. We did have two, one because they were returned to us from DJJ, and another who committed a crime in the court, put them in a secure track, and we contracted with Shasta. So those are what the expenditures are for. The one change, which did cause a little, somebody to vote no on the plan. OYCR is responsible for doing investigations as it relates to the Youth Bill of Rights. We didn't have that before. That didn't exist. BSECs are a statutory authority who comes in and does regulation inspections. OYCR now does these new inspections. And so what I've said is if the state is going to create additional workloads for county and there is a funding stream, that they should be billed for it. And so I put that in the plan. I ran that through county counsel's office as long as it was in the plan and it's directly related to this law change. It seems to be an agreeable funding source for that work. And if we track it, time code it to the work that's created by any of this work, it seems a valid expenditure. So we've never actually done it. It's in the plan now. In case it comes up, we could bill to it. That would be something different in the plan. It won't be very much, but it's more of a principle issue for me. And that is basically the full JJRBG. There's 30 pages or 33 pages, as I mentioned, in the full plan. The acronyms were described in the other. You have all of the statutory required folks who are on this subcommittee. Their departments and names are all in here. And then some of our crimes trends are also found in here. And then the programs and services that we're offering.
I'm not seeing any, yes, Supervisor Williams.
Another solid presentation. Thank you. I would move approval.
Okay. No more questions. Go to the public. Nobody in the room. Madam Clerk.
Seeing no comments online.
Thank you. All right, we have a first by Supervisor Williams.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Haschak. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right, that's all three presentations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next item, R7, discussion of possible action, including adoption of resolution of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors approving and disapproving certain exceptions from the county road standards for Bella Vista subdivision, Project Ukiah area. The sponsors transportation. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm Howard DeShield, your Director of Transportation. With me here today is Deputy Director Jason Wise, who oversees our land improvement and, reviews our development plans. We've written, obviously this is, the applicant is appealing the department's decision to ask for, they're appealing our decision to ask for reinforced concrete pipe for the storm drains in the Bella Vista subdivision. And our standard is for vertical curbs, and, they are appealing the issue over rolled curb. Years ago, as this developer bought the Gardens Gate, Gardens Gate was going to be maintained, the roads were going to be private, they were going to be maintained by an HOA, I said I would support rolled curbs. We would still support road curbs. The developer gave us a design memo that basically gave some other jurisdictions with rolled curbs. We selected the one from Santa Rosa with rebar reinforcing. They don't like that. They want the one without rebar reinforcing. Well, the standard from Sacramento has a larger base section, so it's stronger to withstand wheel loads for people who roll onto curbs. So we would still be open to not doing rebar and doing the Sacramento standard. That could be worked out. I feel much stronger about the concrete storm drains, because it's my understanding that the developer, unlike the previous development, wants to take these roads into county maintenance, which would put the department responsible for the curb gutter sidewalk and storm drains, as well as the road surface. And these storm drains are rather deep in places. If, because they're plastic, heaven forbid there was a firestorm and a fire ever got started in them, these plastic pipes have a little chimney every so often, which is the curb inlet where water goes in. But in dry conditions, it's just open to burn. There's lots of air and lots of opportunity for that. Also, because there's other utilities going to every house. You have water service, you have electric service because everything's underground, you have sewer service. Digging up and replacing damaged storm drain pipes would cause us to interfere with a lot of utility that exists in the road. And I just think it's better to make that initial investment, buy something durable like concrete pipe, which, reinforced concrete pipe, which won't burn, won't rust, and, won't be a future, major maintenance consideration. So my memo goes into much more of the details. I know that the applicant's memo counters with an article from the Paradise Fire where it shows that the plastic water lines weren't negatively impacted, but you've got to understand water lines are generally full of water, and they're also not vented to the surface regularly, even if they were empty, to allow them to burn or be damaged. So that's my short introduction. We're here to answer your questions, and I'll let the chair take it to the appealing applicant.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I have a question about the specific language in the title and the recommended action. It calls for approving and disapproving. I read disapproving as not synonymous with denying. I would think of disapproving as withholding approval, whereas denying would be a final determination. Was this intentional, or should we treat it as synonymous with denying? When I look at, Subdivision Act or CEQA, I see deny as the choice word, not disapprove throughout.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gadrowski, I'll double check the language in tab H. That may have been what I was looking at, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any more questions. We can go to the public on this. Nobody in the room. Madam Clerk?
Seeing nobody online.
Okay, back to the board. Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Department of Transportation for working with this applicant. I know that there's been a lot of conversations around both of these subjects, and I appreciate the applicant's interest in continuing to move forward with this project. I would like to move the alternative action to modify for the HDPE piping for the storm drain system and for the rolled curbs without the rebar.
Okay. Anyone else? Supervisor Haschak?
I just want to be clear on what that motion was. You wanted to allow the HDPE pipe and the rolled curbs without rebar.
Correct. To not require the use of rebar in the curbs.
Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the rebar and the curbs, but I don't feel there's enough information to make an informed decision about the long-term impacts of having flammable material in the storm drain. So, this is one of those decisions where I want to see this project move forward. I've been pushing as hard as anyone, but I don't want Howard to come back 10 years from now and say, I told you so. And I think there's a real potential, given the climate conditions, fire propensity in that area, that he could be right.
Supervisor Klein?
I'd like to second Supervisor Myron's motion.
Okay. If you could, I have a question for you, if you could come back up. It sounded like you were either up in the air on the reinforced curbs, is that correct?
Well, originally, under the Tab H exception, the applicant can bring engineering evidence to us for us to consider an alternative. And they gave us several examples. One had rebar to reinforce the rolled curbs, because obviously now you have traffic driving on them at intervals regularly. And then one of them had the rebar to make them stronger. Another example had a stronger base section, or there was more rock under it. And we would have continued discussing that within. Our real sticking point was the concrete storm drain, because that's where the big money is if it ever had to be replaced. And, I just, that is the big one for me. Because you can fix the curb, it's on the surface. If you have to dig down 4, 5, 6 feet, you're wiping out all the improvements above, which are very expensive and interfering with a lot of utilities. And, there's never going to be easier time to put concrete pipe at the bottom of that trench than when the ground is bare out there and nothing is built. And then everything will be built on top of it.
What was the developer's attitude towards the concrete and your hard line on that? Was it, if this is what we decide, they're going to pull stakes and leave, or?
They have always wanted plastic for a lot of the reasons they indicate. It's easier to work with, it's lighter. They had those arguments in their letter. I get that. The initial cost would be less for them. The replacement cost at a future date would be much more. That's my argument back. And, in this case, this is, I believe, the developer intends to pursue putting these roads into the county maintained system. So it would be an expense to the road fund at the future to have to make those repairs.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Williams?
Well, that's my concern. If it were my project and I were handing it over to the county to maintain, I'd probably be looking at the cheap solution too, right? The upfront cost is less, but I don't have any expertise here on how long those plastic pipes are going to last, what condition they'll be in 10, 20 years from now. Am I sticking with the next generation in this county a major expense?
If they don't burn, they'll be very durable. The plastic pipes will. I admit that.
Do we have any information on these pipes burning elsewhere?
I looked online for some of that, and a lot of jurisdictions, including Mendocino County in the past, a lot of the subdivisions we've done, we have put in either concrete or metal pipe. We weren't using plastic. We did use it in the Vichy Springs development, and I will admit, after the fall of 2017, I kicked myself for using it at Vichy. I wished I hadn't.
What is the cost differential?
What's that?
What is the cost differential roughly? Are we talking?
The pipe itself, I understand, per foot, just buying it at the yard, is about the same. It is, as the developer indicates in their memo, it's harder to work with. It's heavier, harder to fit other things around it because it's rigid, and you have to saw through it with a concrete saw versus just cutting it if it's plastic. So it is harder to work with. There is more initial cost of construction.
Do we have any ballpark? I mean, are we asking for a $50,000 upgrade or a $2 million upgrade?
You would have to ask the developer. Yeah. I can't tell you.
So, Chair, I think we need more. I've been really good about following the board's rules, as unenforceable as they are, that I haven't abstained. This is the first time. I don't want to vote against this project in any way. It's critical. But I also put some weight on the director's opinion that if this were handed over to the county and we had a fire right away and we had to dig the thing up, we don't have budget for that. I mean, I would rather the county subsidize the project and do it right than get stuck with infrastructure that we have to maintain at public's expense that's wrong.
Thank you. Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. For me, I guess my question to the director, just so I'm very clear, the HDPE pipe would be long lasting. It does possibly cost less to put in, also possibly cost less to maintain from root intrusion and other things. Your major concern as the director of transportation is in an absolute firestorm.
Yep.
And I appreciate that greatly. Also, I think, given the changes in climate change, we all should be concerned about that. However, I think that in this instance, that is not my major concern. I think that if there were to be a major firestorm, we're going to have plenty of other damage to have to deal with. And I don't think that it's appropriate to hold this developer to a standard that may not, other developers may not have been held to, especially considering that the applicant has provided information to this board about why HDPE should be accepted and how we could move forward. So my motion still stands, and if we don't have any further questions, I'd call for a vote.
Thank you. I do have one question.
Okay.
You, the Vichy Springs, you said you kicked yourself for that. Could you explain why?
Because we went with plastic. We went with this pipe. So if there were a hot fire up there, it's possible we'd be faced with this, burden on the road fund. I wished at that point I'd have, asked for concrete. But I agree. I wasn't thinking about fire much before 2017.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, sir.
Deputy County Council Matthew Kudrowski, just to clarify, I appreciate and respect the alternate motion. If we can make it a tentative motion so I can revise the resolution to make the findings in the alternative and try and bring that back after closed.
Okay.
Supervisor Williams?
Can staff also bring back an analysis of whether there's a real fire risk here? Is this theoretical, or is this something that other counties have had to pay for? Right now, where I stand is I'm an abstain. I don't have enough information.
Supervisor Haschak?
Well, this is, we do need the housing, but we also need to respect our Department of Transportation or Public Works Director and his opinion on this. And it just seems like if we go with that plastic, we're kind of setting ourselves up in the future for this potential economic crisis, disaster. And that's not really a good situation to be in. So I would vote no on this motion just because I don't think that we should go with the plastic. We should take the advice of the experts that we have. And also, I think with the curb, it does seem reasonable to either have the rebar or a greater depth of the base, just because people will be driving up on those curbs and it's going to break down, and at some point we'll probably be responsible for that too.
I'm sorry, this will be my last question, but you mentioned the alternatives of the reinforced curb versus the deeper base. Where was the applicant on either of those?
Well, originally when they verbally spoke to me, I said, yeah, I'll submit a tab H. I'll go with rolled curb. They gave us several alternatives from other jurisdictions, and we picked the one from Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, with the rebar in it because the rebar reinforces it. There's less chance of it breaking. It just makes it stronger. Again, it's one of those things that's easy to do while you're pouring it. It's a lot of work to do after it breaks. So, and I'm always thinking about ongoing maintenance costs, because if these roads are accepted into the county maintained system, then that will be a burden on the road department.
Right. So if the board were to decide not to require the reinforced, is the applicant open to the deeper base? Pardon me? Okay. Well, let's bring them in.
Hello. sorry, I was in another meeting and I thought this was gonna be after lunch.
No
So
worries.
I'm coming in really cold, so I don't know some of the conversation. On the rolled curb, which I just caught the end of. Am I still on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's not easy to put in the rebar, and that was an oversight from myself and my engineer on showing that as an example. We did not see that Santa Rosa had that as a standard. It's pretty common to just not use rebar. When we talked to the company that would do the sidewalk construction, rebar complicates it because we can no longer really use a machine. From what I understand, it's really for concrete strength. It's two things. It's the sub base compacted to 99%, I believe. So your AC or the sub base of that, and then the number of sacks of concrete you use. Generally, it's a 4-sack bag, so it's numbers of sacks per yard, if I'm speaking correctly. And in this case, I believe the standard is 6. So it is a stronger concrete.
Okay, and then there was, the major concern seems to be around the plastic versus the concrete in the storm.
Correct.
Yeah, would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, so it's a construction cost that is essentially tripled for the reinforced concrete. The high density polyethylene pipe is a pretty common material that's used. We have no problem like compromising or doing some sort of assurances that anywhere where this pipe could daylight, we can put the concrete, X number of linear feet. Like I believe these reinforced concrete pipes come in 4 sections of 4. So if it's 4, 8, 12 or some number like that, we're happy to compromise on that. The plastic pipe is a common construction material that we're using for everything else, all the other services, water. If we're using gas would use it. So I understand, and I'm not trying to downplay any concern as someone that lives at the foot of Paradise, but Paradise is using that pipe to put in where their reinforced concrete is falling apart, where their iron ductile is rusting. So it's a common building material.
Thank you. I believe we have one more question. Supervisor Williams?
Is Paradise using it for water or for storm drains?
I don't remember the article that I found. I put it in the packet, and I just kind of came across it when I was rushing to get this elevated.
Do you have any evidence for us that this material, if there were a fire, would not need to be replaced?
I don't have anything that's specifically. I think it depends. It's situational is probably the best anecdotal evidence.
And then, are you planning to ask the county to take over these roads as part of our maintained network, or are these going to be private roads in perpetuity? I guess my sense is if it's private, you can put whatever pipe you want in, right? It's not going to be a county expense. But if you're asking the county to absorb the future maintenance expenses, we would rather have the roads done to county standards. Can you guide us on which it is?
Yeah, we were looking that these would be public roads.
So you turn it over to the county to maintain?
Correct.
What do you think the ballpark cost is in using the concrete? You said it's 3 times as much, but 3 times what?
Labor, trucking, mostly.
What is the base cost? Is it 3 times?
Oh, like $1 per linear foot. I don't have off the top of my head.
You don't have a rough total?
No, I'm getting into construction world, and I'm not.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know about this either, but my concern is I don't know if we're talking about $50,000 or $5 million, right? If it's $5 million, we're going to have to use the wrong material. But if it's a nominal cost, I would rather the county not be in a position to maintain something that's much more expensive in the long term.
Yeah, I don't think it's a nominal cost. It's probably in the high 6 figures.
Okay. Good.
No, I'm not good.
Are you finished with your questions?
This is a position nobody wants to be in, and that we don't have enough information to make a good decision. And Chair, what do you recommend?
I recommend we go to the public. Anybody in the room? No? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board. So I'm going to look to legal here real quick about your request for a tentative motion.
Chair, if I
Yes.
could, we have a motion of a first and a second. What we would like to do, and I was just talking to the CEO in terms of logistics, but what we'd like to do is be able to bring that back as a red line so everybody knows what it is that they would be voting on related to the first and second before you take a vote.
Okay.
So if we could come back after the closed session, or we might be able to bring it back prior to going to closed session.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, tab H requires findings to be made. So if we're changing the final decision of the resolution, I just have to update the findings. And right now the current motion would say essentially the applicant's position. So you look to their documentation and bring something back as soon as I can today. I think my thought on a tentative is more the idea of are there 3 votes in support of that for me to go forth and do that work?
Supervisor Williams, did you have another question?
The chair, is there any possibility that we could just pay for it if it's going to become our road? If we were doing the road today, we would do it right. Should we just subsidize this so it's done right? Because otherwise we're incurring a cost from our own decision-making about road building.
Well, nothing's impossible. The impossible just costs a little bit more money, I think. Supervisor Mulhern? Withdraw? Your question or your motion? Okay, thank you. All right, well, we do have a first and a second, which we need to address. And how much time do you need? You're thinking after closed, or do you need a?
That would be the preference, yes, please.
Okay.
So that way he aligns his findings, et cetera, so we've got a total package, and everyone knows what we're voting on.
Okay. So I guess we recess this item? Is that the correct language?
Correct.
Pardon me? Do you have a question?
I believe there's a motion on the table.
And a second, right?
Yes.
And so what we're doing is presenting what the motion looks like. So you'd see the red line so everybody knows what it is they're voting on. The reason is because of the fact that there is a specific resolution and specific findings.
The resolution doesn't match the motion.
Correct.
Supervisor Klein?
Just a comment to the process today. I think that there were the opinions of multiple supervisors expressed at a previous meeting that this was the direction that at least some members of the board wanted to go.
Supervisor Haschak?
Well, it seems like we have a motion, we understand what the motion is, and so instead of having staff go through all this work to revise it, why don't we have a vote on the motion to see if that's really the direction that the board wants to go? Because it seems pretty clear what the motion is.
I'm completely comfortable with that. Yeah?
That would be fine. I just want to make sure we're capturing what the board, what the final is.
In the resolution. Right,
Correct.
but we can get that after, correct? Okay. Supervisor Mulhern, would you like to repeat your motion?
Thank you. My motion was actually listed in the agenda item, so everybody's had the opportunity to read the agenda item, review this, and I think the developer and both the Director of Transportation have made themselves available to the board with any questions in addition to the discussion that we had today. So the alternative action motion that was listed in the agenda summary was to modify the resolution to allow for the use of HDPE pipe for the storm drain system in the Bella Vista Estates and or a different standard for the use of rolled curbs, and my motion included not using rebar for the rolled curbs.
Okay. Second understands it that way? Okay. So we have a first and a second. We will vote by the button.
The motion carries with Haschak dissenting and Williams abstaining.
Okay, and so legal, do we still need to come back to this after closed?
I'm just going to look to Deputy Kudrowski, so you've made your motion. I think that we've got all of the information. If the board would like to see the final to make sure you're all in agreement, we can do that. You can always reconsider. So
Yeah, I personally don't need to. Is there anybody that would like to wait that time to see it? No.
let me just.
So, I guess Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, I think it's appropriate to bring back the revised resolution and findings so the board knows what those are. The recommended action was to modify the resolution, and so that's what I'm going to do, is go ahead and modify it to state that the resolution is so modified without specifying the findings. I guess it's not technically, in my mind, enough to pass a revised resolution.
Okay. So we'll bring it back after closed. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to move on to item R8, CEO report.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank all the departments. I feel like we have a very strong and full report this month for you, so I'll take a few minutes to hit a few of the items. April is Alcohol Awareness Month, and Behavioral Health and Recovery Services is recognizing this month. That was established in 1987 by the National Council of Alcoholism and Drug Dependency to raise awareness about alcohol use and its impact on individuals, families, and communities. Animal care, please take a look at Cricket. This young lady, mixed lab, may have started on the street, but she adores toys, lights up around every other dog, and melts into people's trust. So we have lots of dogs and cats that are up for adoption. Please visit the center if you are looking for an animal. I would give kudos to Animal Services for, again, the Animal Balance Spay and Neuter Clinic that was held March 6th through the 8th, with over 209 animals were spayed and neutered. Provided 181 rabies vaccines and 175 chips. And the next one will be coming May 1st through the 3rd. Again, we are looking for volunteers, and we do appreciate all the volunteers that help out at the shelter. The DA has provided a link to all his filings and statuses, so please check out the DA's link to all the work that he and his department has been doing. This is very important. Substance Use and Disorder Treatment, SUDT, has created a task force in partnership with Mendocino County Office of Education, and they've hosted a screening regarding a film on fentanyl. And this one was held in Ukiah on March 25th. The film was created by high school students and families in Santa Clara. The event was well attended by over 100 people, individuals who were moved by the film and asked the panel meaningful questions. In addition, a second one was held April 2nd in Fort Bragg at Coast Cinemas. These events are encouraged for teens ages 12 and up with their families, guardians, and allies. I think getting that word out, I've heard very good things from, one, the community, but also Dr. Miller about the participation, the question and answers, and the awareness of this film is having a great impact and education for our individuals. With a huge thank you to the board and the department for the strategic hiring that we have been doing based on year-to-date payroll to actuals through April 15th of 2026 pay date, utilizing the most data, current data that we have. The county is anticipating realizing 5.3 million, a little over the 102% of the total 5.2 we were expecting to get from the attrition factor. So really a shout out to this board for putting that in motion this year and holding that in place. The contracts unit has provided significant amount of data So you can look and see the numbers of contracts. This is a busy time for them, mainly because everybody's starting to renew for the 7/1 dates. Economic Division. In the month of March, staff participated in the government contracting workshop and continued to advance economic development projects such as business loan program, business technical assistance program, and a Covelo cleanup project. The county regularly contracts with services that support county operations and projects. On April 3rd, county staff participated with West Development Center, how to do business within the state of California workshop in Fort Bragg. Staff discussed the opportunities for businesses to work with the county through the competitive bid process. There's other programs that we're doing as well, CDBG, so please look at that. Nice attachments talking about the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay, so there's several sheets there with data and information that they are providing us. The Grants Division is working with the Covelo Fire Hydrant Project. County staff hosted a stakeholders meeting and launched the Covelo Fire Hydrant Feasibility Project on March 20th. This $150,000 project is a state allocation provided to the community of Covelo by Senator McGuire. Attendees: Supervisor Hashak, CAL FIRE, Covelo Fire, Roundtable Tribe, Covelo Community Service Districts, Covelo community members, and county staff. Shout out for the team for connecting with the community and being out there. The OES team, on March 16th, the county held an inaugural Access and Functional Needs Committee meeting. This meeting focused on integrating access and functional needs consideration into core emergency management functions, including evacuations, transportation, sheltering, emergency communications. Additionally, the committee reviewed strategies for incorporating these essential needs into the broader emergency services plan. And the county has hosted a booth at the Mendocino County Science and Engineering Fair, which was held at the college. Other events are listed, not to forget the North Coast Regional Tsunami Drill that we had here recently. Prevention, Recovery, Resiliency, and Mitigation. Year-to-date in 2026, PERM Division continued advancing wildfire mitigation, evacuation planning, disaster preparedness initiatives across Mendocino County. Current efforts focus on moving major grant-funded projects into implementation phases, completing environmental and engineering work, and coordinating with the state and federal partners to ensure continued funding for resilient projects. The report goes on to talk about other projects that we're working on. Fleet and facilities. Facilities are advancing key projects, including the Little River Airport hangar repair, Child Support Services Office modification, installing new emergency generators to strengthen communication during severe weather. Major capital efforts are coming to a completion, including the jail project, and progress is happening on the psychiatric health facilities, and then the improvements to Bauer Park. HR is proud to highlight the Volunteer Week, which we heard earlier. So a good shout out for our HR department recognizing those folks. Biometric screening is coming up. Registration begins in April. I would like to encourage everyone to attend those screenings and find out your base numbers. The legislative program has been working quite heavily. We did several consent items, ratification for letters here recently, and we did an RFP, a request for a proposal for the state legislative advocacy services in December of 25, and a contract was awarded at your approval today. So we will continue with Shaw and Yoder. The library, Mendocino County Library, is participating in a One Book, One Coast in April and May. You do have a Mendocino County sales tax update attached for from HDL. And the museum, please look through this. The museum is pleased to report that the murals located in the Ukiah Courthouse have been successfully documented, and we look forward to being able to share that at the museum and at the new courthouse in the future. Planning and Building has their report attached, and Public Health is recognizing National Public Health Week, April 6th through the 12th, which is already passed, but they have created and listed a number of where they are bringing awareness and supporting individuals and families within the community. So again, a nice report from them. And social services, this is very important changes to dental benefits for immigrants. Starting July 1 of 2026, Medi-Cal will not cover regular dental services for some adults aged 19 and older based on their immigration status. So we are encouraging everyone to stay connected with the department with regards to their services and benefits moving forward as HR 1 impacts roll out. And last but not least, Administrative Professionals Day is tomorrow. So in recognition of Administrative Professional Day, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the dedicated administrative staff who play a vital role in supporting county operations, from coordinating critical communications and managing complex workflows to providing exceptional customer service. These professionals are the backbone of our organization. So thank you to everyone out there that's serving for the county. That concludes my report, unless there's questions.
Okay, thank you. Question, Supervisor Mulhern?
I don't have a question. Well, I do have a question and several comments. One of my questions was, will the board and perhaps members of the public be able to tour the jail before it goes into operation? I'd prefer not to tour it once it's in operation. And also, I wanted to thank the CEO and the team. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to recognize people on Administrative Professionals Day, but the folks that work throughout the county are working on behalf of the citizens every day. And when we come here and we come to our ad hoc and assignment meetings, they are really the face of the county, and I appreciate the work that they do each day. To that vein, I did go through the surveys that were collected by Human Resources, and I think I would just like to say publicly that I recognize that this board has a lot of work that we need to do on helping change the culture of the county of Mendocino. That's not something that the employees and the department heads and the CEO can do on their own. That's something that we all need to play an active role in. And I just happened to make a note about the biometric screenings. Not only does it help you with your health, it helps you save money on your health insurance and is one of the quickest ways to gain a lot of points to save money on your health insurance. So thank you for putting that into your report.
Thank you. If I may, I can ask, we are able to take tours. So I think it's next week we'll have 2 of the board go, and then we'll schedule more after that.
Okay. Anybody in the room like to comment? No? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay. Back to the board for acceptance.
Move approval.
Second.
Second, first and a second. We'll vote by the button. Okay.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Apologies. I almost went the whole meeting without doing that. We have no R9, correct? Okay, we'll move on to supervisor reports. Anybody like to go first? Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, so the solar ad hoc, I hope that's the right name. has met with staff and the current vendor. Due to the lack of net metering within the city of Ukiah Energy, and I understand it would cost them millions to upgrade it, the projects may not be viable here is the bottom line. The ad hoc would like to continue working with Sonoma Clean Power, and I think staff thought there was some ambiguity in the scope of the ad hoc, so I want to get the board's permission, especially the chair's permission, to memorialize that the ad hoc is broad enough to consider other potential solar energy projects in the case that the current proposal doesn't make financial sense. Is that possible?
So I would imagine so. What, when we're talking, you want to explore a different project, is that correct? So basically start from zero?
Well, not necessarily start from zero, but we want to find a project that meets the intent, and it may not. We may have to change some of the parameters just due to financial realities of the energy rate structure in this area where the admin center is, and changes in federal policy that came into effect since we set these funds aside.
Okay. Board have, yes.
Chair, if I could, and I see our Assistant CEO has joined us. The ad hoc was created for a specific purpose, and that was to look at this contract that we have and sort of how to go forward.
Based on the new information that came in.
Right,
live.
and so I do know we want to sort of complete that process prior to sort of moving forward and understand where we are, so.
I would counter that we actually can't, because in order for the ad hoc to make a recommendation about the current proposal, we need to consider alternatives, right? If we're talking about a proposal which, as it may be, doesn't have a payback in the life of the expenditure, the board, might come back and say, well, there's a CO2 reduction aspect of it, but it doesn't make financial sense. We want to have some alternatives in mind so that the board can weigh that decision relative to what else we could do that's very closely aligned with the original intent.
Supervisor Haschak?
Yeah, I'm on the ad hoc with Supervisor Williams, and I'm also on the Sonoma Clean Power Board. And at our meeting in Santa Rosa a couple weeks ago, I talked to the CEO and some of the staff about this situation that we were in with Amoresco and that proposal, the proposed solar projects not penciling out for us. And they said, well, we are working with Sonoma County and looking at some of their rooftops and different options available that we might be able to collaborate with. And we would also be willing to work with Mendocino County. And so I think that's what Supervisor Williams and I are looking for, is just that permission to expand our scope to allow those conversations to go on.
Okay. So Supervisor Williams, what it sounds like County Council's concern is closing out the original, the bringing back to the board whether or not the new information was relevant or not.
Right.
So I thought in the formation of the ad hoc, I thought the scope was broad enough that Supervisor Haschak and I could talk to Sonoma Clean Power. It was a surprise to me. So I think part of legislative intent in creating that ad hoc, there's some confusion. I was hoping we could just clarify it. The alternative is we could disband the ad hoc and we could create a new ad hoc for almost the identical purpose.
So we've got CEO, Assistant CEO up here to speak, who is more familiar with this, but my concern is that we have a contract, we're looking at what we do with that contract, different issue than moving and looking at solar. Also, you gave, which has been in the works for years now, direction to staff, and they've been following through on that. So I just don't want to conflate the two issues. Perhaps we can hear first from the Assistant CEO. Thank you, Supervisor.
If I may, just to clarify again, we did go back and listen to the direction that was provided, and it was to follow up on the new information that was provided during the presentation with regards to Amoresco, because during that presentation, Amoresco brought up information that the team hadn't been aware of. So that's what that ad hoc was for. it could be two separate, but again, we want to close out. We have been working with this project for 3-4 years now. And if you're shifting to go to a total different project, we would have to have some direction to be told to do a different project. And again, if the ad hoc is researching and gathering information and bringing that back, it's a critical time, and I had asked Sarah to talk about the timelines, about staff availability, particularly right now as we're finishing up budget and a few other things. So we kind of need to close one and then look at another. Go ahead, Sarah.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So we did meet with the ad hoc in Amoresco last week, and even as early as yesterday, we got additional information from Amoresco. I do have a meeting scheduled with County Council tomorrow to look at that data. So my recommendation and request would be that we bring back the additional data that we are still getting from Amoresco, close out that ad hoc, and then potentially create a new ad hoc with direction to look at alternatives. As CEO Antle said, we are very limited on staff resources, both in the executive office and at facilities, but we're happy to take the direction. We just have been working on it for at least 5 years to try to get to this point.
Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, so I don't think it's possible for the ad hoc to make a recommendation in a vacuum on this one. The reason we would work with Sonoma Clean Power is so we could determine whether this project that the county's been working on for 5 years makes any sense. And so we're not asking for a separate project with a separate ad hoc. We're saying that unless the scope is broad enough that we can bring in some experts to guide us, we won't be able to come back with a recommendation. It seems like this proposal stinks, but we need more information to really determine if that's the case. So I'm happy to do whatever the board's pleasure is. If it's keep it to just this Amoresco contract, we'll come back with a recommendation.
So I guess my recommendation would be to stick with the original direction of the ad hoc, get the information back to the board, and then if it is like Supervisor Williams says and it stinks, then we can make a decision there. And I mean, the other option, and I don't know if it hamstrings you or not, but there's nothing that stops the two of you from continuing your work with Sonoma Clean Power. Is that correct?
There is, because we need to involve staff, and I think staff is uncomfortable because the board hasn't authorized the staff time for such.
Okay. I'm not Supervisor Haschak, and then we'll make a decision here.
Yeah, I just think that, we have a meeting lined up with Sonoma Clean Power, and to get that information, their perspective on what we're doing here would be beneficial.
And thank you. When is that meeting?
The 27th, I think.
Mm-hmm. And where's staff and are you part of that meeting?
If I may, through the chair, no, I was not invited. I know that Jeff Detterman and Doug from facilities were. I'm happy to take direction if it is to sit through that meeting, that initial meeting, and we can bring back the Amoresco revised cash flow on May 5th if there's time on the board still. Mm-hmm. So it's at the direction of the full board.
CEO, can we get if the direction is to stay within the boundaries of the original, can we get that back on May 5th so we can let these gentlemen continue to move on?
I believe so. I
Yeah.
could check the time and.
Okay. I think that would be my decision unless, I think we've got two board members that want to go one way and I haven't heard from the other two and I don't know if it's appropriate under Supervisor Reports to take a straw poll, but.
Yeah, I mean, you can always ask for direction from, seek direction at any time from the full board. But you're right, this is basically report out as opposed to, but sometimes when you report out, direction needs to be given, so.
Okay, well, then I would ask from the other two that haven't chimed in here yet because I'm in opposition of the other two here. Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I think at this point I'm unclear as to what new information would be gained by speaking with Sonoma Clean Power that would change our ability to move forward with the Amoresco or not move forward with the Amoresco contract. And so, I really, if there's absolutely something that changes the idea that we would even move forward with Amoresco, then sure, then, go ahead and meet with staff. But if it's a matter of this Amoresco thing isn't going to work out, we're going to go a different direction, then that's a different ad hoc and different agenda item. So I agree with staff that they want to finish up with the one project before launching into a new one. And at this point, it's unclear to me what the ad hoc is trying to do.
Okay. Supervisor Klein?
Yeah, I agree. I'm also concerned about staff resources, as there's a lot of changes happening right now in the CEO's office. So I just want to be cognizant of that.
Okay, so then we will stick with the original scope, and CEO will have that at the next meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I can, Supervisor Mulhern, please.
I was just going to do my supervisor report. Okay. I did attend the IWPC meeting, and I'll let Supervisor Klein speak to some of the documents that were included in the board packet today. So that was a discussion that happened at IWPC related to how is that agency going to move forward. As you know, that's a multi-jurisdiction agency that has a very, very temporary part-time person working on providing budgets, updating the website, and doesn't really have an executive director or a leadership position as an employee. And the intention of the updated documents that were provided to the board is to show a budget that would include somebody working on how to move that agency and the jurisdictions forward in a way that helps, secure our water future. So I just wanted to highlight that. It was not approved by IWPC yet. They wanted us to come back to our boards with the information which Supervisor Klein included in the agenda item. Supervisor Klein, did you want to add anything to that before I move on to my other?
Sure. On that topic, there, has been this ongoing conversation around the increased financial need of IWPC moving forward, specifically around staffing and advancing the water storage projects. If you looked at the documents, you'll see that IWPC is now asking for increased member contributions from the City of Ukiah, Russian River Flood Control, and the county. They are actually asking for increased resources from all the agencies, but they are asking for a contribution of $215,000 from City of Ukiah, Russian River Flood Control, and the county. Our clerk team did attach the documents from IWPC's meeting at my request because I wanted to make sure the full board had an opportunity to view them. We have historically not had written updates like this at IWPC, which I think has been part of the issue, transmitting information back to boards. So I appreciate that. I think that there's no way around it. If this project moves forward, if there is dam removal, there have to be increased resources in order to make those projects come to fruition. Otherwise, this whole thing will fall apart. So I would strongly urge that the county is able to, fulfill that need at this time.
Thank you for that. And I think for me, it was important that the county does take a leadership and a financial obligation in a role that's equal to the City of Ukiah and the Russian River Flood Control District. We, at this point, are serving a lot of our jurisdictional boundaries serve a lot of the water agencies that may change with the inland water JPA that might come forward, which means our contribution might change. But at this point, I think it's really important that the County of Mendocino contributes in a very meaningful way. I took a tour of McCavan to learn more about the programs that they offer beyond the Needle Exchange program, and I would encourage my colleagues to take that tour as well. I attended the Spirit Run Walk at the Redwood Valley Rancheria for child abuse awareness, and that is a great opportunity to learn about the programs that they offer there. The Behavioral Health Advisory Board met in Covelo. We heard from Yuki Trails and the other agencies that provide services in Covelo, like Tapestry, about the work that they're doing on substance misuse disorder and trying to meet the other behavioral health needs for folks that live in Round Valley. I had a conversation with Lenny from the Hopland Band of Pomo Indians, just trying to keep those lines of communication open so that the county can play a meaningful role in what's happening in other agencies that are around us. Supervisor Klein joined me in a conversation around Marigold Villas, which is a project that is near the Ore Creek Commons on Brush Street in the Ukiah area. This project is now under development, and while it's my understanding that staff is not ready to bring that item back towards the board, I wanted to start having conversations early on about the makeup of the tenants of that property and the ideas that RCHDC has around reducing calls for service to the Sheriff's Office and Ukiah Valley Fire Authority, which are heavily impacted by the Ore Creek Commons at this point. So that was just an initial conversation about what does that project look like and how might that impact county services. I attended a meeting with Supervisor Norvell of Mendo Matters to discuss their thoughts on homeless issues and what opportunities we have as the County of Mendocino to support the needs of businesses in our community. I attended the LAFCO executive meeting where we had a conversation with the Mendocino Coast Recreation District. This is an item that will be coming back to the full LAFCO Commission for an update of their MSR. They wanted an opportunity to provide feedback and ask questions of the executive director and the executive committee before it went to the full board. So there was an opportunity for them to express their concerns about the information that was coming forward in the MSR, and I believe that we were able to sort through that, and what is coming before the LAFCO Commission in either May or June meets their needs, but if it doesn't, they have an opportunity at that point to ask again that they have more information included. I also just want to highlight that there are two important RFPs out that affect our community. That's the abandoned vehicle abatement program, the towing contract that goes towards removing abandoned vehicles. And as you know, that is a tax measure that everybody in Mendocino County voted on to add $1 or $2 to our registration in order to have abandoned vehicles removed promptly. And I believe all of the city municipalities as well as the county have online reporting features that you can use, and I want to thank our new IS director, Tony Rakes, for helping me have the county system improve so that photos can be directly uploaded from your cell phone to that system. And then also the Mendocino County Riverway Restoration and Employment Pathway Grant will be closing this week, and this is an opportunity for some agency to help support future job training and also to clean up some homeless encampments that we have at Ackerman Creek, the Russian River at Talmadge, and to do some work for some restoration work in Doolin Creek in Ukiah. So a couple of opportunities, I think, to follow up on projects that our community has asked us to follow up on.
Thank you. I'll be brief here. I'm still working with MCRPD on several issues, including their desire to work cooperatively with the city of Fort Bragg, and they have a couple of projects that are going to include the county, which could turn out to be really good. I have a tour of the Casper Water District scheduled for Sunday after the Casper Community Breakfast. The city of Fort Bragg held a grand opening for Bainbridge Park. It was well attended. It's a great site. It also included work done on the bordering county property, the Veterans Hall. And I just wanted to point out that the city commented how collaboratively the county worked with the city on that issue, and they were happy. Supervisor Mulhern did mention the meeting with Mendo Matters as the homeless ad hoc. We have a meeting scheduled next week with Dr. Miller. The annexation ad hoc, Supervisor Klein and myself have a meeting with the city of Ukiah Thursday morning where they will propose a new map to be considered. And then a brief update on the emergency weather shelter that's been closed. This is from the Chief of Police who runs the weather shelter. During 25-26 operational window for EWS, Fort Bragg experienced a typical winter of 10 days, winter with 10 days experiencing a low temperature of below 40 degrees and total rainfall over 36 inches. This resulted in the EWS being open 39 nights and housing 71 unique individuals. In total, 233 hotel rooms were issued to 71 people. With the decreased usage, only 2 calls for police service were generated at the hotel, which is good news. This was a 53% decrease in nights open and a 64% decrease in total hotel rooms as compared to 24-25, where the EWS was open 83 nights and housed 170 individuals. In total, 644 hotel rooms were issued to 107 people. Despite the increased usage, only 8 calls for service from police were generated at the hotel as a result of the EWS. This was an 8% increase in nights open and a 105% increase in total rooms compared. And that's it. This will go in front of the city of Fort Bragg next week. And lastly, McCavin House is still collecting needles. If you find needles, please call McCavin House 707-462-1932, or you can call Joe Ditto directly 707-727-0402. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Chair. Going in chronological order, I attended the CSAC Board of Directors retreat. The focus was on the year's priorities that have been set by the Executive Committee. Most of the focus of our conversation was on HR 1 and the associated asks that they've been making of the state legislature, of which I know this board is very aware of. And to make sure the board is aware, the priorities set by CSAC are HR 1 and indigent care, housing and homelessness, Prop 36 funding, AB 218 solutions, that's the county liability issue that has happened in the state legislature, IHSS, disaster response and recovery. I also attended the CSAC Rural Caucus HR 1 briefing and have actively discussed with both CSAC staff and RCRC staff, since they're deeply involved with this, as is our state advocacy team, and our county leadership has been very involved as well. Through CSAC, I've also participated in conversations with CSAC colleagues and CSAC's federal lobbyist around tribal policy and federal cost sharing. CSAC does not currently have any policies surrounding tribal legislation on a federal or state level, so this is something that multiple colleagues are interested in getting involved with. I know the sheriff has had some discussions around this as well. Supervisor Mulherin mentioned Inland Water and Power Commission, and I think we've touched on that, but I would really encourage my colleagues to look at the attachments on our agenda. I attended a showcase over in Lake County hosted by the Lake County Wildfire Resiliency Workforce Program, Workforce Alliance of the North Bay, and Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance Initiative. It's a project that is funded by, funded by Housing and Community Development. It's designed to train and empower local workforce in wildfire mitigation, forest health, and community resilience. There have been many meetings and phone calls regarding the Caltrans 101 Hopland project. A big thank you to collaboration from Caltrans, PG&E, Senator McGuire's office, Assemblymember Rogers' office, MCOG, GRTA, County DOT. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Everybody's played a role in getting the project to a better place where the community has been able to impact how the project actually rolls out. They presented an estimated schedule at the last Hopland MAC meeting. It's posted to the Caltrans website for the project. If you haven't seen that website, if you just Google Caltrans Hopland 101, the website will pop up. At the May Hopland MAC meeting, Caltrans is committed to sharing that schedule with some estimated dates associated with each portion of their project. Their goal is to get this done in one season instead of spreading it out across 2 seasons. North Coast Resource Partnership gathered in Humboldt County Thursday and Friday of last week for both a strategic planning session and then their regular meeting. The regular meeting had some conversations. Assemblymember Rogers gave a legislative update. There's always a great agency panel happening at North Coast Resource Partnership. A similar project to the one I mentioned in Lake County was also discussed in another jurisdiction. There's a big focus on workforce development in terms of the controlled burns, beneficial fire, and just firefighter training, given that's such an important focus, and those are great paying jobs. I would love to see a little bit more focus of that here in Mendocino County to make sure that we're not missing out on that opportunity. North Coast Resource Partnership received 50 proposals for a total funding amount request of $7.5 million. That's 3.8 times the amount of available funding of the $2 million listed in the capacity grants program guidelines. The board did increase the total funding of this program to be close to $2.4 million, which allowed the funding of 32% of the total funding requests. Mendocino County did receive a large chunk of those funding requests across the 7 counties. As Supervisor Mulherin mentioned, she's been spearheading conversations with Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation about both Oar Creek Commons and Marigold Villas. Obviously, Marigold Villas is the project that's just breaking ground. But to touch on Oar Creek, that's a really high impact to our resources. They clocked 250 calls for service, or 350 calls for service to the sheriff's office last year, almost 1 call a day. That averages out to. Current tracking puts them on track to do the same thing this year, so I'm really concerned that they're not making enough of an effort to reduce the calls for services. And I would be very hesitant to support additional projects until I see some improvements from their operations. And as Supervisor Norvell mentioned, the City of Ukiah has reached out to initiate a conversation regarding annexation. It sounds like they have a new proposal for annexation. We have not seen that proposal yet. We will see it at the meeting on Thursday morning. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Haschak?
Let's see, I've been on ad hoc interview committees for the Great Redwood Trail Agency, looking for consultants to form a tribal advisory committee. And we're in the second round of those interviews, and we've had a lot of applicants for it, so it's exciting to move the Great Redwood Trail in that direction of really getting some tribal input, to say the least. MSARA had a meeting last week. We looked at the fixed income portfolio. CSAC, I've attended some of the webinars about the HR1 multi-year budget request, and certainly the fears out there of what's going to happen when a lot of the impacts from HR1 go into effect after the election. Okay. And then I also attended the North Coast Resource Partnership, and it was great to see the number of agencies that are doing really good work out there as far as our landscape. Unfortunately, we didn't have all the money needed to fund them all, but certainly we're moving in that direction. And then we had a couple ad hoc committee meetings and looking at the carbon reduction and that whole solar panel issue. So that's it.
We'll go to the public. Comment on supervisor report outs. None in the room. Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay. I apologize. Did we vote on this? No. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to closed session. We have items CS1, CS2, and CS3. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak on closed? None. Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay, and we will return to open session no sooner than 1:30, and at 12:35 we will adjourn.
From disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
A beautiful, clean river doesn't start here. It starts here. What we put down our storm drains goes straight from our streets into our local creeks. Simple changes can make a big impact. Like when you wash your car, the best solution is washing at a professional car wash. But if you wash at home, divert wash water to an area where it can soak into the ground, like a planter strip. Also, empty your bucket of dirty wash water in a sink. The wash water will make its way to the treatment plant, where it is cleaned. You probably know how to pick up your pet's poop when you're out on a walk. After all, it's the neighborly thing to do. But what about the pet waste in your backyard? Pick it up regularly and especially before rain or irrigation water washes any of it into a backyard drain. Your pet's poo is full of bacteria and nutrients that can contaminate our creeks. Scoop the poo, bag it, and put it in your garbage. When tending to your yard or garden, check the weather and prevent over-irrigation. Runoff of fertilizer, herbicides, landscape materials, compost piles, and leaf debris pollute our creeks. Remember, timing is everything. Pick up any litter or trash that may get into the streets. If you grab it before water or wind arrives, it doesn't have a chance of ending up in our creeks. It's up to each of us to take care of our creeks and rivers. They're ours to protect. Find out more at streetstocreeks.org.
Welcome back, everyone. As far as closed session report out, the board gave directions on item CS1 and CS3. And we need to reconvene on item R7. Sir?
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, over the lunch break and this afternoon, I've worked on a couple of different resolutions.
Just a moment. I just want to clarify, and on C2, there was nothing to report out.
Thank you.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, based on board direction, I went ahead and drafted a couple of different red lines to revise the findings based on the developer's submittals. And I have two different versions because of things that I both heard the developer say and saw also in their submittals as well. I can do a screen share if clerk of the board can add me, or if clerk of the board can share the resolution. So this is the revised resolution. The title, obviously, we're no longer disapproving any exceptions. Both are being approved. There are no other changes on that page. Finding 1, it's been changed from Sonoma County to the City of Sacramento, and specifying actually the curb and gutter type. There were multiple specifications. I'll scroll down to that in a moment. Those findings didn't need any changes. The rebar was not mentioned as part of those. Finding 2 is that it is now approving the requested exception to use HDPE pipe. And what's been added in this section, in this version as opposed to the other, is this next clause, with the added requirement that HDPE pipe shall terminate at least 4 feet away from all daylight locations. This is something that was in the developer's materials as an offer as part of their request for the exception, and the developer mentioned it again earlier at the meeting. So I think with that and talking with department staff, this is an improvement as far as DOT is concerned. I think they may be on the in the Zoom to confirm, but because this would limit how close the plastic would be to where heat would be coming into the pipe system. So I've offered it here as an option or alternative. The other resolution doesn't have that clause in it. That's the only other difference.
Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, I have a question about that. So I don't have a problem with the board approving this. The majority have already spoken. But I don't think 2A, you can actually make that finding. The design material method or work proposed is, for the purposes intended, equivalent to or superior to the standards. We know that it's not equal to or superior to the standard. That would be like making a finding that wood is as transparent as glass. We can make the finding, but we all know it's not true. So I don't have a problem with approving it, but that 2A seems like quite a stretch to say that it's equal or superior. It would be like saying a pencil has the tensile strength of rebar. It's just not true.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, this is the information in the developer's submittals that supports this finding.
I'm sorry, sir, I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry. I will try to eat the microphone. This is the information in the developer's submittals that support the finding. The finding is that the other material is equivalent to or superior to. And in terms of the information provided by the developer in their written materials, this is the phrasing that supports it. That overall, as compared to concrete, these are the statements made by the developer.
We can't say that. We can say we want to approve it, but we can't say that this flammable plastic is equivalent to non-flammable concrete. It's just factually wrong.
If I could,
Please.
through the chair. I mean, I think Mr. Kudrowski has gone through this very carefully. I am very particular about findings. I think when you have the difference between plastic under the ground versus plastic above, I think that the finding is supported by what has been submitted to the county, and we are basing some of our conclusions on that. But I don't have an issue with this finding. And again, as I've stated, I think the findings are very important. That's why we wanted to bring this back and make sure you could see it. So I am not trying to just shorten this process, but I do think it's supported. I do think in terms of discussing this with the developer, I don't see this as a problem in terms of getting this a problem for this board.
Supervisor Mulhern.
I don't want the public to be misled by Supervisor Williams' comments. I think that the findings are related to the product as in its entirety, not as it's related to its fire combustibility. So I think that's the entire point of the conversation that we're having, is that Director of Transportation had one issue with this material type. In an attempt to alleviate some of that, the developer is making an agreement to use this 4-foot measurement away from the daylighting or air sources. And I think I don't want the public to be misled that we're talking about the overall use of this material and not one component of the reasons why the Director of Transportation was concerned about it.
Okay.
Going forward, the rest of the findings, again, the findings are required by tab H. I'm just looking to the developer's submittals for the support. Paragraph B is saying there is no special privilege, and this then relates to how this has been used in other jurisdictions. It's been used in a different subdivision as recently as we can say we've done so, and there is an adopted standard for using it. It won't result in increased adverse environmental impacts, and this is focusing on the benefits of the lightweight of the HDPE pipe that was presented in the developer's materials. And lastly, that there's a number of efficiency benefits, and it won't impact other property owners in the vicinity. So those are the findings that are revised to reflect the motion of the board earlier. And lastly, just in the next page, is attachment A from the City of Sacramento. The curb and gutter type 1 is their rolled curb standard. If there's any questions, please let me know.
I'm not seeing any. I believe we still need to go back to the public, right? Because we got different information. Okay. We have nobody in the room. Madam Clerk, anyone online? Okay. Back to the board for action or discussion.
Sorry, for the record, my mic was muted. Seeing no comment online.
Thank you. Again, back to the board for action or discussion. Supervisor Hashtag.
So with the City of Sacramento type 1, does that have the increased base, or because we talked about that, or is it the same that was proposed?
That I would probably defer to Department of Transportation staff on. I know this is one that they were comfortable with, and that was in the written materials before the board. And they mentioned this also by name earlier. I'd have to look at the Sonoma County version and compare the depth.
And just, if I could, through the chair, for the record, all of these new information that's being provided to this board was now reviewed again by Department of Transportation. They have signed off on it, as has the developer, which is partly why I don't have so many.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Well, unless you'd like to make a motion for the new resolution that was uploaded.
I think we need to identify which one.
Please, with the HDPE clause or not.
Yes, with the HTTP clause.
Second.
Okay, we have first by Mulhern, seconded by Klein. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries with Supervisor Williams abstaining.
Okay. It is, thank you to staff for getting this done and bringing it back to us. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for giving us the time to do that. That's appreciated as well.
It is 3:50 and we will adjourn.